The Wes Penre Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The First Level of Learning. http://wespenre.com. Solution Section. Solution Paper Number 1, Breaking the Spell. By Wes Penre, Thursday, July 14, 2011. Part 1. 1. Introduction to the Frequency Fence and the Third Density Quarantine. I have touched this subject in passing earlier in these papers, and many other researchers have gone into it in detail as well. Yet, there are others who guarantee you that there is no such fence, but to me it is obvious, it's just a matter of definitions, and frequency fence and / or quarantine are the ones closest in definitions. To really grasp the vastness of all this, it's mandatory to have a decent grasp of Zecharia Sitchin's work, The Earth Chronicles. I have written a super condensed version of them in my Anunnaki papers, and if you're unfamiliar, or just slightly familiar with Sitchin, I would suggest you read those papers first. The series of papers, which I have called First Level of Learning, to a large degree discuss what could be defined as the Anunnaki problem. According to the stories told in the Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki did not pass themselves off as gods at first and were not treated as such, either. That came later, and when it happened, some of the Anunnaki took advantage of this and pretended they were God Almighty. Two such people were Namur, the Enlil as Yhvh, and Marduk as himself, and then behind the scenes as any of the gods of the major religions, working in the background. Of course, the Anunnaki are not gods. If we really want to use the word God, it could be as in creator gods, but with a small g. They were miners and geneticists, and they did tamper with our DNA big time. The story goes that the Anunnaki took an already existing, primitive humanoid race here on Earth, Homo erectus, and mixed their own DNA with them to create a labor, slave, race, intelligent enough to understand and follow orders. Thus Homo sapiens sapiens were born, the thinking human. The key word here is primitive. This is what Sitchin says Homo erectus were, and this is apparently what the cuneiform say. And what does Marduk have to say about it? Remember how he changed history? This is most possibly one of the changes he made. The Sumerian tablets were written 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, much of it based on hearsay. Those who wrote down the history knew nothing about it, except what they'd been told by the gods. They knew their present situation and perhaps what happened at large 2-3 generations back, as it was passed down verbally. The rest was most probably changed, just like A.R. Borden indicates in the link, to the Anunnaki's advantage, so we got a wrong picture of the gods. Borden even said to me at one time, whoever wrote the Enuma Elish was taking dictation at least in the granite rock tablet. This was a response to my question whether the A.A.M.I* from Nibiru agree with Sitchin or not regarding their own history on Earth. Apparently, they do. And they probably did take dictation, but was the dictation correct? I have reasons to believe that they had been on Earth much longer than 450,000 to 500,000 years. Some sources, like the Guardian Alliance, insist they've been here for at least 850,000 years, which is almost twice as long. The Pleiadians as well, in some of their lectures, give hints that the gods have been here at least 500,000 years. But it was in the Anunnaki's interest to waylay and deceive mankind into believing in a partly false history. What resonates with me, and always has, even before I read any information on it, is that we were already evolved beings before the Anunnaki came down here and started genetically altering us. There are quite a few sources who agree with this statement, both metaphysical, via channeling, and sensory data streaming. Earth is an experiment, and what we today call Homo erectus was a part of that experiment. These, our forefathers, were seeded by the earlier creator gods, like the Vegans, Lyrans, and their cousins, the Pleiadians, in conjunction with reptilians, insectoids, and others. We see Homo erectus as primitive, because they supposedly didn't live in cities and didn't have technology. However, you who have read one of my previous papers, Genesis paper number 1, Human Origins and the Living Library, know that they were in charge over a highly evolved civilization and they carried 12-strand DNA, fully activated. The Pleiadians are very outspoken about this and consistently tell us that we were evolved beings before the Anunnaki came and we had the ability to move through realities and manipulate matter. Furthermore, they say that many of these abilities were scattered purposely by them. They tell us that all realities have their guardians, and stewardship changes over time. Guardians are not always uplifting and benevolent beings. The guardians who manipulated out genes some 300,000 years ago were a warrior race and kept everybody out who would set us free. The Anunnaki were not alone on the planet even when they were in charge. There were other races here at the same time. Some were working together with the Anunnaki, others were not. The Anunnaki at some point made an agreement and an alliance with the Dracos, a reptilian warrior race who are hybrids of a reptilian race, the Draken, from another galaxy, and humans in an earlier genetic mix. They often were seen working together with the humanoid Anunnaki. This is not mentioned in the Sumerian stone tablets. When I talked to Dr. Borden about DNA, and mentioned to him that Homo erectus had 12-strand DNA, which was split and deactivated, downgrading them to 2 strands, he firmly disagrees and says that this is impossible. And even if it was possible, it would grow back within the next 10 generations or so. Then he refers me to the scientific evidence about DNA that is available today on the internet. He also adds that we have thousands of strands in our DNA already now, so 12-strand doesn't make any sense. This may be true or not, but if we have thousands of strands already, why are we calling our DNA today 2 strands, or double helix? However, he fully agrees that there is no such thing as junk DNA. Dr. Borden is frustrated that people can't get their heads around what RNA/DNA is, even in academia and among highly educated researchers, so I told him this is because almost all information we read on this subject is highly scientific and close to impossible to understand, unless we want to spend days after days with dictionaries, getting caught up in endless word chains. So instead I suggested that he writes a paper on DNA which is both educative and simple to read for the average person, because this would be the only way for people to truly understand it. He said it is a great idea, but as I am writing this, he has still not written it despite a reminder. If he does, and when he is finished, I will post it as a separate paper, word for word. His viewpoint on this is that even though the Anunnaki did use us as slave labor and made soldiers out of us to fight their wars, they also sped up our evolution with millions of years by adding their own DNA to our existing one. This is where I disagree. According to almost all research I've made, this is not correct, and I include my intuition in this. We have to understand that science today on Earth, even when it comes from the most brilliant scientists, doesn't know everything. DNA is not only physical, it expands and branches out all through the multiverse. That's how we have access to all there is on a sub-quantum level. You are multidimensional because of your DNA. If 10 of these strands are made dormant, what would happen? We would become very limited to what we are able to experience, just like we are today. 1.1 Ungluing the radio knob. Freedom of frequency. When I talk about a frequency fence around our planet, or a quarantine, there is a physical electronic fence and there is a limitation in our DNA, a limitation which, together with the electronic fence around our planet, keep us trapped in a frequency prison. What happens when someone changes your DNA from 12 helix to 2 helix is that you are almost totally cut off from the multiverse. You forget who you are, where you come from, and who are your true creator gods. When left with a double helix, everything, more or less, is unplugged from our cosmic, multidimensional connection, and left is only what is needed for basic survival. We are locked into limited, controllable frequencies, the ones necessary for us to be able to function as a slave race for the gods. The physical frequency fence, which according to David Icke is controlled from the moon by the Dracos and I would say the A.A.M.I as well. Icke looks at these two races as one, which is incorrect, makes it very hard for the frequencies of light, information, to penetrate. There were times when light frequencies could penetrate after the fact we'd been unplugged, but there was no one there able to receive them. The light-encoded filaments were no longer organized, so the cosmic rays had nothing to plug into and hold onto. Marciniac, Bringers of the Dawn, p.17. When in ignorance, all you don't know becomes a mystery and somewhat scary. It's easy to create fear in such beings, who previously were quite fearless. The Anunnaki, and other service to self, negatively oriented beings, feed off fear. Again, I am not saying all Anunnaki are/were bad, but it is definitely a cultural thing. These beings fed off fear like food, that's beyond any doubt, the evidence is everywhere. They, and other dominant alien races, have created terror and fear on this planet ever since the Anunnaki tampered with the DNA of our ancient ancestors, all the way up to this day. Certain people are more targeted than others by these beings. The more anxiety and fear you feel inside, the more interesting you become to these beings. Those people who have learned to conquer fear are no longer a target in the same way, because they are no longer a food source. The good news is that we can still reactivate our 12-strand DNA by educating ourselves like we do now, and use what we learn. In addition, we have the alignment with the galactic center and the changes in the sun, where more gamma rays than normal, rays that carry information, reach us here on Earth. Still, it doesn't matter how much light is coming through if there is no one here to receive it. If we are not awake and aware and start communicating with our environment, including the sun as a part of our higher self, this information will just go wasted. However, if we do our job, these are very enlightening times, and as we grow as a whole unit of body/mind/soul, our DNA will be reactivated, little by little. Our big chances now, within the nanosecond, between 1987 to 2012. Although third density is a frequency prison, created some 300,000 years ago by Anunnaki geneticists, it is still an experiment, and many alien species are curious to see how we can find our way back to cosmic consciousness. Some of them are impressed by the hard work many of us do to help ourselves and others. The frequency fence, as we've mentioned earlier, works like a radio station. You turn the knob to a certain frequency range and you will hear what is broadcast on that channel. However, unless you turn the knob again in one direction or the other, you will only hear what's broadcast on the radio station you just tuned into. This is how third density on Earth works. The knob is stuck on the frequency range we are currently operating within, and we have to work ourselves up the frequencies and be able to turn the knob at will to experience the whole multiverse. We do this by reactivating all our junk DNA, the 12 helices. Until then, humanity is trapped here. Pretend, in our current state, that we went to other planets, we would only experience them from the frequency range we vibrate on. This means that we may land on a planet and say it's barren with no intelligent life forms, when in fact that's not true. We just can't perceive the intelligent beings living there, because they vibrate on a higher frequency. Another obstacle is time, which we have discussed either. In which time does the astronaut land on a certain planet? Before it was life-bearing, when it is life-bearing, of after? Time is indeed a local custom. We are controlled by fear and terror so that those who are in control can make totally sure we are not able to unglue the dial again, and still, despite of their efforts, they are no longer successful. People are waking up, seeing through the veil of forgetfulness that the RA material is talking about. If you look around, you see that the controllers are getting more and more desperate. They are moving too quickly. In their desperation, they are now trying to implement all new restrictions at once, and people are seeing through it, and in some professions, like nursing, the employees are coming together and refuse to follow the new rules of functional insanity. 2. DNA code activation. The original planners knew what they were doing. They would not give up on humanity this easily and let the Anunnaki get away with their changing the DNA structure in humanity, which refused us the ability to connect in full with the multiverse. The Anunnaki were brilliant multidimensional geneticists, but they didn't know everything about DNA. The original creator gods implanted an activation code into our DNA, which would be activated at a certain time in the future when humanity hopefully are developed and evolved enough to be able to handle this activation, which is embedded in our so-called junk DNA. This time is now. Some of us will handle this transition with excitement and go through it just fine, but others, who are not prepared, will have a harder time. The main thing that is happening is that we start remembering who we are and the timelines of our different incarnations will merge. In other words, in the beginning we will get flashbacks of earlier and future lifetimes, and these flashbacks will feel very real. They will be a few in the beginning but increase in numbers. People who don't understand what this is and meet this new challenge with fear and rejection may even go insane, similar to a schizophrenic person. We may be able to visualize this by first understanding that this is the end times as prophesized, where time on this planet is imploding and linear time is no longer sufficient to carry the human race further. So, similar to a black hole, time is merging and retracting. By experiencing this, when at the same time it is triggering our DNA code, we regain our multidimensional abilities and will ascend. When this happens, and it has already started to happen in many people, go with the flow, look at the new information with hope and excitement and understand what it is you are experiencing, and you will be more than fine. The transition will be fairly easy. During this transition, however, you may or may not experience periods of unease, or some parts of your body will start acting strange, sometimes resulting in pain. However, if you go to the doctor, they may not find the cause to the problem and will act quite confused. This is normal and usually nothing to worry about as these symptoms will disappear with time. On a larger scale, there will be planetary changes as well as changes in the Sunday. We have discussed these previously, but it is not up to us to solve these seemingly unsolvable problems, only to understand them. Even problems are energy, no matter how condensed this energy is. The definition of a problem is intention versus counter-intention, which creates stuck energy, as two or more forces clashing with each other and get stuck. If we see the problem as it is and how it was created, the problem disappears in our own minds and no longer stays as a part of us, unless we manifest it again, wittingly or unwittingly. This is one of the main reasons I want to present a problem as close to how it is manifested from both sides, so that the reader can recognize it and diffuse the stuck energy. Not only will you be able to step out of the problem, but also help the rest of the planet to heal, because others will be affected by your own recognitions. There are people today in the New Age and UFO movements who think we should not expose negativity, because it makes this negativity stronger. I understand where they come from, but I disagree. We need to present the problem as is for it to be understood and discharged. Then, and only then, can we move on past it. Our task, after we understand what is going on, is to ride on the wave of this inner knowledge and understanding, transmit the increased light within us into our local universe, our environment and everything in it, and transform it into unconditional love. This will raise the vibration of our environment and it will spread like ripples on the water when we throw stones into a lake. What one person does is making a huge difference. Dr. Borden and LPGC are trying to, via memes, belief systems, to influence people from all walks in life to be inspired enough to come together, creating the effects of the so-called 3% rule, or the 100th monkey syndrome. The theory is that if 3% of the world population are united in a certain way of thinking, the rest will follow due to that we all are one and of the same multiversal energy. I want to make use of the 3% rule as well, but maybe not using the same memes as LPGC are attempting to create. Important here is that we want to evolve by ourselves and don't need any descending gods to show us how to do it, or to protect us. We have the tools we need, and we don't need their technology either. We evolve by using our own energy, by activating our DNA code and by influencing others in our environment by being examples, and by living what we learn. This is how we expand the mass consciousness. The Pleiadians are talking about Earth having a sister planet in another galaxy. They don't mention which galaxy that might be, but if we go to Oceanus Voyagers 2 book, we see that this sister planet is located in a solar system in the Andromeda Galaxy, approximately 2.2 million light-years from our own Milky Way galaxy. Much because of invader forces like the Sirian A.A.M.I. and the Anunnaki, the original creator gods, who seeded humanity to begin with, called the Brno order by the Guardians, had to hide certain stargates called the Halls of Amenti, which lead to planet Terra, the original Earth from which our present planet stems. How this is related on a higher metaphysical level will be a subject for another paper, but for our purpose, these stargates, the Halls of Amenti, which once upon a time were placed in the core of the Earth, have been moved several times and were once located in the core of a sister planet to Earth in the Andromeda Galaxy. The Halls of Amenti for Earth were created 25 million years ago to allow for teleportation ascension from Earth to Terra when opened. Just like the Pleiadians and the 6th density Ra collective, the Guardians tell us that we humans need to work on the reactivation of our original 12-strand DNA to be able to go through the Halls of Amenti and be harvested to the 4th density Terra, which is our original home, after what the Guardians call the Fall, where Terra descended into 3D. The harvest will not happen all at once, but gradually, and start in 2012. However, time is limited, as the Stargate will close again around 2017. Those who haven't been able to activate their DNA code by then will continue evolving on another 3D planet, just like the Ra Collective says, while those who ascend will pass through the Stargates and enter a higher density Earth, Terra. Although the Halls of Amenti Stargates are density 2, Terra exists in a parallel universe called Hu-2, which consists of dimensions 4-5-6. The Guardians have their own way of explaining the differences between densities and dimensions, but for now, all we need to know is that from our perspective, and as far as these papers of the first level of learning go, the ascension will be to a 4th density planet. Some readers of the RA material don't like the idea of a harvest and believe it to be a selfish and negative thing, because you leave those behind who are not ready to ascend. I used to think the same way after had read the Wingmaker's material. Mahunahi, who runs the site, as well as LPGC, are talking about a collective ascension, a no one left behind attitude. However, the more I research this I come to the realization that this is not a selfish or unselfish thing, it's a graduation. If you're in school and miss too many classes or don't do your homework, resulting in that you can't graduate, you will need to take the classes again. It's the same thing with ascension, it has to do with how well we are able to handle energy. If we are not handling energy well enough to go to the next level, we need to go back and do it all over again. Here's the Guardian Alliance directly. Ascension is not some lofty spiritual concept designed by the minds of man, it is a literal, tangible scientific process of the evolution of consciousness and biology within the laws of energy mechanics that apply to a multidimensional reality system. You can go about your human lives, with your consciousness confined to the limitations presently imposed by your physical body, or you can learn the mechanics by which those limitations can be released, and begin to experience the reality of freedom that is the comprehension of yourself as soul. Whether or not you view ascension and multidimensional evolution as a reality while you are alive on Earth, you will be directly faced with that reality once your consciousness has passed out of physical life and into the multidimensional framework. At the death of your physical body you will discover that your consciousness lives on and your evolution continues. All souls will eventually evolve and ascend through the 15-dimensional scale, to re-emerge a sentient identity within the realms of pure consciousness beyond the dimensional systems. Immortality, freedom from death, disease, and pain are the natural birthrights of your species. Voyagers 2 page 106. This is a personal responsibility, and although Guardians from Hu-2, Harmonic Universe 2, can assist in this process, the ultimate success of DNA building lies in the hands of the embodied consciousness who directs this process by the way in which personal energy is used and applied. Voyagers 2 page 108. The process of ascension is simply going up the dimensional scale by raising the particle pulsation rhythm of your body. It's a holy concept because that is what the concept of spiritual evolution really is about. As you do this you pull in more at one-ment with your God/source. So ascension is a religious concept and a scientific concept all at once. It's not a punishment not to ascend and be part of the harvest. However, a window of opportunity has opened between 1987 to 2012, and if we don't take advantage of this now, it will be so much harder later on, until a new certain alignment with the galactic center is taking place. In the end we are all ascending back to source, but due to the experiences we choose to have, it will take longer for some and go faster for others. Still, those who take longer and need to go through another cycle in third density are highly contributing to the overall experience of consciousness in the multiverse and are enriching the understanding of self, which is the goal of Source, and therefore it is our goal as well. This is done through individual experiences, no matter what these experiences are. Experiences and learning processes are needed in all densities and dimensions, and no one is better than the other just because he or she moves up to another density. I hope the reader can see the point here. This is how multiverse physics works and everybody is contributing. Our DNA is being charged up. Everything that goes with it that I've learned through my research and I held as true is happening. I can't deny it, and even if the whole world told me I was wrong, I know what is happening inside and what abilities I am gaining. The Pleiadians say that new helices or strands are being formed as the light-encoded filaments are beginning to bundle themselves together. Marciniak 1992, Bringers of the Dawn, p.29 OPCIT, and I can feel it happening and see it happen in others. We are on our way to create a new world and a new reality. I hope as many as possible are following on this journey. 3. The quarantined Earth and the misuse of energy. So what is the difference between quarantine and frequency fence? I have sometimes used these terms interchangeably, but they are two different things. The difference is that the fence, which can be compared to a radio station, was set up by the Anunnaki to keep us trapped within a certain frequency band, while the quarantine was set up by other ETS, often in near-Earth space, in an effort to protect the living library. It had to do with the misuse of energy, like what happened during the Atlantis period, when nuclear power was used extremely irresponsibly by gods and humans, and it blew up land masses more than once. Pleiadian Lecture, June 12, 2010, The Internet, CD 3, Track 12. Although there was an attempt by earlier creator gods to stop the destruction of misuse of nuclear power during Atlantis, the intervention only made things worse and a nuclear war broke out. Asha Yanadine, 2002 Voyagers 2. Finally, the original creator gods and other guardians and protectors of the living library quarantined Earth. The invaders, Anunnaki and others, could leave, because it was not their planet, in terms of how the previous creator gods looked at it, but humans, who had gone along with the ride and used nuclear bombs as well, has to prove themselves worthy to be part of the galactic community before the quarantine is lifted. It's up to us to prove that we are not using nuclear and negative energy for military purposes but under clear restrictions. There are those ETS out there who don't look kindly on those who destroy our planet. Today, we are on our way to repeat the stupid mistakes we did during Atlantis, starting with the atom bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which opened up wormholes in many places on Earth, letting uninvited visitors in. Earth advertised its coordinates all over the multiverse and ripped holes in space where there weren't any before. Not only did we do it twice, we have been blowing off nuclear bombs in the ocean and in the deserts around the world frequently since WW2. UFOs have been seen during all such events, circling around the explosion areas. The beings watching us are less than pleased, to put it mildly. They did not interfere at those times, although I've heard it was a borderline intervention. Now, when we are trying out missiles in space, they do interact. ETS say, here, but no further. There are a lot of witnesses, and I've also seen article in mainstream media, where UFOs have intervened when we've tried to use weapons in space. Here is Professor Robert Jacobs of the U.S. Air Force. So this thing UFO fires a beam of light at the warhead, hits it and then it moves to the other side and fires another beam of light. And the warhead tumbles out of space. What message would I interpret from that? The UFOs were telling us don't mess with nuclear warheads, Major Mansman said, you are never to speak of this again. After an article about the incident years later, I would get phone calls all night long. People would call and start screaming at me. One night somebody blew up my mailbox. Reports like the above clearly shows where ETS stand on this issue. Yes, as intelligent species who have developed on this planet as a part of the living library, we are eventually meant to be the guardians of it, not the destroyers. In attempts to claim ownership of Earth, in arrogance and stupidity, we use nuclear warheads to show our power. I'll tell you a no secret, no one is impressed. And believe it or not, but animals, oh, so smart, who are more multi-D than we are, often migrate out of this reality to one that is safer and they can survive better. Pleiadian Lecture, June 12, 2010, The Internet, CD 3, Track 12. An extinct animal species, whom we in our madness have made extinct, or almost extinct, are not so. Nothing disappears, it just changes location in time and space. So it's not so strange to imagine that some versions of Earth have a quarantine or frequency control around them, while other versions of Earth, that operate on higher value and consciousness, don't. There are many futures existing at once. They are not necessarily waiting for us to create them, they already exist. It's up to us which future Earth we want to experience and live on. Do we want to live on a planet where we have to duck for the warheads and where sneaky power-hungry ETS and their human cohorts want to make machines out of us, or do we want to live on an Earth where there is harmony and peace and where we live per the universal law of one, where the inhabitants live by these values and unconditional love? The decision for most people, of course, is not hard when I put it like this. However, the problem is to get people to the point where they read this paper, or other information of a similar context, are convinced that these negative things will happen if we don't change. Those who think that things will sort themselves out and everything bad will go away by themselves and just read spiritual stuff or conspiracy theories on the weekend for fun or for the thrill of it, are going to end up in the nightmare I am here describing. Not only do we need to educate ourselves, but more importantly, we need to live and apply what we learn. I can't emphasize this enough. The futures that are already in existence are drawn to you, or you to them, as you start imagining them and create them inside. By raising your frequency and reactivating your DNA, you start vibrating accordingly to the future you desire. There are multiple Earths, more than we can imagine, and they are all there as probable futures. It's like being a child, when your parent opens a candy box with lots of different candy. Pick one. This is why it is so important to be very, very clear in our thoughts and in our desires. Our thoughts and emotions are the two most powerful tools we have as human beings, and we need to use them wisely, for we get the reality we dream up, always, no exception. We can't blame anybody else for the reality we're in now, or the reality we choose in the future. Be clear. It's extremely important. If you feel you aren't, start working on it now. Sloppy language and sloppy thoughts will create sloppy reality. Your body is your best friend because it's your tool to ascension, but it is quite literal. It follows your directions in thought and speech. If you keep on saying, "It's a pain in the neck," your body is going to respond by giving you a literal pain in the neck. On the contrary, if you tell your body it is beautiful and a perfect vehicle, it's going to respond accordingly. 4. Subliminal messages in films and on music CDs, and the effects of electronics. Most of us have probably at one time or another wondered about how everything could turn so fast from horseback riding, wagons and trains being run on coal, to our modern society with high tech. Seen from the perspective of human evolution, it's almost like a blink of an eye. Many wonder, but few know. In fact, our modern technological society was not entirely developed by us humans. Most of this technology came from aliens via TTP number. We gave them what they needed and we got what we needed. And much of this technology was used within the military for warfare, for business and trade, and for direct control of humankind. Today, after 9/11 and other so-called terrorist attacks, governments are developing the perfect surveillance system to watch all citizens 24/7. Then, people in the New Age movement or those who are waking up spiritually may say that there are now many good movies and TV series revealing to the people what is going on. However, when we watch a show on spirituality, subliminally we are hit with a frequency which keeps us from original thinking. Often, the subliminal tells us to remain in a survival, go to work, be silent and fearful society. The day after we've watched the show, we still go to work as usual, perhaps even with a stronger feeling that we have to. Subliminal technology was to a large degree developed by ETS. In 1992, the Pleiadians had the following to say about subliminals. The use of subliminals to upset human consciousness has become a worldwide program. If you think about the houses that have 2, 3, and 4 televisions in them, you must agree that this has been a very successful marketing program. Some people who know about the subliminals on television feel that they are immune to them. However, the effects of television are so permeating that no matter how clear you say you are going to be, you cannot counterbalance what the technology is presently doing to your vibrational frequency. We have said that there are entities who feed off your emotional bodies. Think about what a clever tool television is for them. All over the world, billions of humans are emitting emotional juices into the atmosphere based upon what they are watching on the tube. They don't have to have too many wars anymore to get you all riled up, they can simply make movies. Marciniak 1992, Bringers of the Dawn p.91, OPCIT. And then we have the music industry, of course, with subliminal messages on the records and CDs, called backward masking. It's much more common than people think. Then we have the change of the standard A tuning, A equals 440 Hz, from 444 Hz, which is much more harmonious and in line with cosmic frequency. The change was apparently introduced by the Rockefeller Foundation when exploiting military music. In spite of many conductors and musicians' protests, the change was also implemented on classical music and eventually rock music. The real introduction to low-frequency rock music was made by the British rock group, Black Sabbath in 1969. The official story goes that the guitar player, Tony Iommi, had lost some of his fingertips in an accident, so it hurt to play on strings that were tuned in standard tuning. He resolved this by tuning down his guitar to a low dB, D-flat, which created the characteristic Black Sabbath sound. Many say they were the forerunner for other heavy metal and death metal groups, who still tuned down their instruments to a lower tuning. This, of course, creates certain effects in the listener. If you also add distortion to the guitar sound, Black Sabbath even used a distortion box on the bass guitar sometimes, like in the song NIB, something unheard of before. You can create very unwanted emotions in the listener, which of course was the purpose. It doesn't help that you are singing about Lucifer and Satan as well. Their defenders say that they were Christians and sang against Satan and warned us from him, but this is just a clever psyop. All of the Black Sabbath members were into the black arts, admitted by Geezer Butler in a YouTube video. The fact that they mention Satan, Lucifer, and demonic possession in the lyrics is enough to trigger the subconscious mind, which does not distinguish between if the message is positive or negative. However, with the music that comes to it, the mind does interpret it as negative. The image of the rock group does the rest: long hair, rebellious and dangerous. If you don't believe the music industry is totally corrupt and controlled, I strongly advise you to read Inside the LC, The Strange but Mostly True Story of Laurel Canyon and the Birth of the Hippie Generation by David McGowan. It's probably the most detailed story of rock music with the most amount of truth that is out there. It's impossible to read the series of article and say it didn't happen and that it's not happening today. Everybody should open their minds to this and read it. If you are unprepared, it's quite shocking. The following may not make me very popular in some camps, but something that is very destructive is the mega rock concerts. If we understand that the ETS who are controlling us from other dimensions are feeding off our emotions, what then is a rock concert? It's an orgasm of emotions. The musicians are the first to receive all the excitement from the pumped-up audience, who transmits both raw energy and a lot of sexual energy at the same time. The musicians then work as antennas for the other dimensional beings, who suck up the emotions and feed off them. More power to them. That's one big reason why band aids, farm aids, and whatnot are arranged, with huge arenas and marathon music playing almost around the clock. Not to mention the rave festivals where people are taking ecstasy and dance all night. Woodstock in the 1960s was a forerunner and a huge experiment in human behavior on a mass scale under the influence of drugs. The authorities were passing out drugs to the audience, who was stunned by this but of course welcomed it. To be able to tune out as much as possible from the frequencies which are there to trap us and keep us trapped, we need to unplug the television, be very careful what music we listen to. Yes, I know that's the hard part. Only listen to uplifting music which takes you to higher realms of existence. Some say they feel high when they listen to death metal, but it's certainly not the same high as listening to Mozart or Beethoven. The high the death metal fan is feeling is adrenaline flowing through their body, seemingly uplifting them, when in fact it does the opposite, without the listener being aware of it. How much criminality and drug abuse can be traced back to the music industry and the products they are releasing? The percentage is much higher than most of us can even imagine. How about cell phones and computers? These days almost all people, at least in first world countries, use them all the time. Many of us are using electronics during the day more than we are off them. Our job situation requires it, and then we continue when we get home, and the same thing goes for cell phones. Electronics jam our frequencies, that should be obvious. There are incompatibilities between our own frequencies and those which are emitted by electronic devices. Most of the time this is done intentionally, but even when it's not, it still doesn't vibrate with us. This can be extremely damaging for our nervous system and stop us from effectively evolving as body/mind/spirit. We need our bodies and our minds to ascend to higher frequency bands, because our bodies are carrying much of our DNA, which we need to evolve. Electronics tamper with this structure and is therefore very destructive on our system, not to mention that it can produce cancer and other unwanted effects on the body and mind. I am using electronics myself, both when I'm writing my papers, I'm using a computer right now, and at work some of the time, mostly for email purposes. However, I rarely use my cell phone and I never ever watch TV. I stopped 5 years ago and I'm a happy camper. My plan is to use the computer less and less once I'm done with my writings and return more and more to nature. I am working on paying off all my debts, and I mean all, and become self-sufficient. We haven't seen the bottom of the rabbit hole yet, but I'm going to be prepared together with my family. The less dependent on the old system of functional insanity, the better. I am a free spirit and I can do whatever I want. I can dream, and I'm good at it. As an artist I can dream up whole realities, and I know what I want, and what I dream I will get. There will be more to follow, ripple effect again, just like I will follow those who went before me. Those who tune in will choose a similar future reality in a future version of Earth. The old world is declining rapidly and chaos and disasters are coming upon people faster and more drastically than ever. This is normally what happens just before a transition. Those who want to hang on to the old, like the captain who is determined to sink together with the ship, will perish or be caught up in a very disturbing reality, while those who choose not to be part of it will create a new existence on a higher level. However, to be able to do the latter, we need to master two of our worst enemies to ascension, fear and anxiety. Not until we have learned to conquer these emotions can we ascend to something we like better. 5. How to conquer fear and anxiety. It all began with the nanosecond in 1987, or around that time. More and more people started waking up, realizing that something was very wrong with their lives. Someone was controlling it. The global elite and those who manipulate them saw this and knew that it was coming and were prepared. A new concept was implemented into the work environment. It was called multitasking. A person who previously was used to doing more or less one thing at the time at work now had to learn how to do several things at once. To a certain degree, it's nothing wrong with this, and if done in the right way, it can even be therapeutic in the sense that we become more multidimensional. However, when it's done with the intention to overwhelm the person, it has the opposite effect. It stresses us out and keeps us more attached to linear time as we have to complete several tasks within certain time limits. There is no time to do anything else. Who, in that situation, has time to be multidimensional? Here is a practice in learning how things are planned in different layers by those in charge. Level 1, lower level planning. As times go bad and the economy crashes, planned event, the industry does not want to employ more people. Instead they lay off people and let the ones who are left do the job of those they got rid of. So now we have an almost impossible situation, where people feel enslaved and taken advantage of. Often, they don't get a raise either, which is also blamed on the bad financial situation. People who have some insights think the reason for the unemployment rates and not enough people employed to do the job is because the global elite intentionally crashed the economy. Level 2, lower level planning. The unemployed have enough problems trying to make ends meet while the few who do the job of the many have to multitask until they are absolutely exhausted, often working long hours without pay. Employees are frustrated and don't understand why the management is making totally irrational decisions which do not enhance the workers or the company, but rather destroy both. No one says anything, because they are programmed to think, oh well, at least I have a job. People with some extra insights may think that they have us multitask so we can't see what the global elite are doing behind the scenes. No one has time or energy to get involved and stop them. Level 3. Higher level planning. The solar system is aligning with the galactic center and the sun and the galaxy are sending loads of information to us to upgrade our RNA DNA, but for that to happen there has to be someone here on our end who receives this information. If people are too caught up and involved in the functional insanity around them, there are fewer people who are receptive to the encoded information carried on the gamma rays. More people miss the boat and don't get upgraded. Some people with higher awareness can see this. Level 4, higher level planning. Mind you, levels 1 to 4 are happening simultaneously to have the optimal effect on us Lulus, humans. Companies run themselves to the ground and the media are blaming it on the bad economy. That has nothing to do with it. The bad economy was planned to set levels 1 to 4 in motion. We hear on the news that old, established companies now are bankrupt and have to merge with other companies, or businesses who still are standing on their feet are merging anyway just in case things get worse, and after all, they have to keep their position on the market. On the highest level, no one cares which company goes out of business and who is not. The corporations that count are all owned by the same people on the very top. Smaller businesses, owned by honest, decent people, stand no chance on the market anymore and disappear in endless streams of bankruptcies and go out of business. The end result is a global structure which is a preparation for the future to come. The smart cities are already in place and the real owners, who normally don't travel in limousines but in spacecraft, can come and inspect the result. The reptilians and the Dracos have done the groundwork here on Earth, and their masters, the A.A.M.I, can come back and inspect their real estate and give their approval. Can you see how this is all connected and what seems to be separate events are not so? It doesn't matter which insights a person may have, whether it's on a level 1 or a level 3, it's both going to be correct, but only part of the picture. And it doesn't end with level 4, either. This setup by the PTB number creates fear and anxiety in most people, it brings these emotions up to the surface. People get sick from them, sometimes seriously ill, as they tear on the immune system. The plan, to a large degree, is working, but people are still waking up, because when put into a corner where there is no obvious solution, people can become very creative and start thinking outside the box. This is what is happening to a percentage of the enslaved population. When life is speeding up, which it is, both due to the nanosecond and the general job situation, we need to slow down, even if everything around us tells us we can't do that. The PTB know that the solution is to slow down, so therefore they make sure our life keeps being hectic. We need to unplug ourselves from the matrix. What we need to do more than anything else is to rest. Some people are needing a tremendous amount of sleep and rest. It's not because we're getting lazy. Here are the Pleiadians again. There will be times when some of you will wish to sleep 18 hours. Do it. It is necessary. You have no idea of the lands you travel to and the work done on your physical body when you sleep. It is the time when you are unplugged from this reality and recharged and taught in other realities. The bridges, and your eyes, will open between realities, and you will begin to see and carry these memories. Marciniak 1992, Bringers of the Dawn p.177, OPCIT. Yes, the times are difficult, and before it turns around, they will be even more difficult for most people. Instead of fearing them and build up anxiety, welcome the difficult times and let them teach you what you are here to learn. In a status quo, there is nothing to learn, but in difficult times we can grow tremendously. If we look at our challenges without fear and anxiety, believe it or not, we can even be excited about them, because the learning lessons are so great and we have the possibility to grow tremendously. I know this to be true from own experience. I have learned to conquer most of my fears and carry no anxiety inside, and I am working on the fears I still have. So I really feel that the challenges in my life teach me a lot. And they will teach you a lot too. Give yourself an endless amount of love and encouragement. Say, "Hi self, I love you and you are wonderful and beautiful." In the morning, or whenever you see her first, say hello to the sun and tell her you love her and ask her to give you great energies that will help you get information so you can flourish and prosper through the day. Learn where in the sky she is at different times of the day and send your thoughts in that direction as soon as you can think of it. Also, when you wake up, the first thing you can do is to tell yourself, "Today is going to be a wonderful day. Everything I do, and everything that happens to me will be in my best interests and will help me grow." You are setting the rules for the day when you first wake up in the morning. If you think, "Oh no, another hellish day at work. I'm going to be so worn out I can't stand it," then that's what's going to happen. Our thoughts and emotions are tremendously powerful. Stress is always harmful to the body, if experienced in large quantities over a long duration of time. It leads to blocked chakras, and body problems always have to do with blocked chakras, even injuries. When things are not working for you, and you pull things into your life that you don't want, look at your belief systems. The ones you're operating on, or one or more of them, are obviously not working. There is a fine line between a catalyst and non-functional belief systems. A catalyst is when something is happening to you and you can pick up some good experience from it, handle the situation and move on. An old, non-functional belief system is one that doesn't enhance your life and doesn't make you grow. Recognize why it is that keeps you attracting certain kinds of energies over and over which make your life harder, and simply tell yourself that you are not available for that anymore and change your way of thinking. If this doesn't work, you are stuck in fear somewhere, which makes it hard to let go. You still need to recognize this fear and realize that it is your own creation, and let go. If you do, the stuck energy flow will become fluid again, and the reason for the fear you had will start dissolving and disappear, or change direction. We all need to be exceptionally clear in thought, in words, and deed. I've said it before, but these are the times when we can't fiddle around and be sloppy on any of the three. The energies are so fast that we manifest quite immediately what we think and feel. Negative thinking will draw to us more negative energies in quantity, and positive thinking will do the opposite. There's no time to sit and say, "Yes, but..." We need to train ourselves, or we'll go in directions we most probably don't want to experience. We need to be clear how we sit, how we stand, how we talk to people, what kind of images we put before our eyes. It's a matter of being in charge of both body and mind and know what we're doing 24/7. We need to dream, even when we're awake, but at the same time stay grounded in our bodies, and take care of them and eat what makes the body feel good and strong. If you're reading this and your body is not in the best of shapes, do what you can to improve your situation. Any improvement will lead to a better outcome. We often take better care of our cars than we do our bodies. Still, our bodies are what keeps us alive in the cosmos and are ours to use for multidimensional purposes. I am also saying this in preparation for times to come. Many think that the financial meltdown and the financial low has reached the bottom and now everything will be better, but don't get fooled because the long trend is showing soaring statistics. There will be more crises on the financial market, more crashes. I walk the dog in the evenings and I see foreclosures everywhere. People have to go from their homes because they can't afford them anymore. If things like this seem to be happening to you, clear your energies. You need to have the intentions that you are always in the right place in the right time and everything will turn out better than best for you. Be sure of it. Clear your field from negative thoughts by putting positive thoughts there to replace them as soon as you spot them. Train yourself to recognize the destructive thinking and tell yourself, hey, that's not what I want. Cancel that. Then replace the negative thoughts with positive ones. Practice this on a daily basis, as soon as you hear the nagging in your head, and quite soon these negative thoughts will diminish and disappear. Your survival depends on it. Then bring your positive energies to others in your environment and those who are anywhere near your own vibration will pick up and automatically be more positive themselves. And they will know you had a big hand in their own development. Another negative emotion is anger and fury. They are negative because they are out of control and affect the environment negatively. They create fear and anxiety. Anger and fury are the two emotions positively oriented aliens have the hardest time with when comes to humans. It has been reported from the linked plenum meetings * that when a human gets angry, the aliens withdraw. If you feel furious, angry or frustrated, the first thing will be to recognize the feeling, but not to be so identified with it that you become the feeling. This is often what happens with these particular emotions. Once you recognize the feeling, you may face a person who is not very nice to you, get neutral about it and ask yourself, what is this feeling telling me? Do I need to do something? Do I need to pay more attention? Is it telling me to speak up and not hide what I think, or is it telling me I don't need to be available for this? Find out what is going on and why you are feeling what you are feeling before you act out. You then diffuse your own energy by recognizing it instead of using it destructively by letting it out on another person. If you ask yourself some questions, there will be an answer. And remember, if tumult and chaos seem to happen around you, it's important to take the advice I've given, but also be sure that this is the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new. Everything that's old and doesn't work, whether it's inside of you or on a planetary basis, has to go to make place for the new to come. It's a normal process and I am giving you a few tools to use to make the transition easier. Whatever you do, don't stop feeling. Feelings are essential to our enlightenment and evolvement as individuals and species. That's what makes humanity so unique. We have to look far and wide in the universe to find a species with such a wide amount of feelings. Alien who are watching us are amazed and impressed, because it's our thoughts and emotions that will help us evolve. The only concern positive aliens have is that we seem to have such a hard time controlling our feelings, so they don't control us. It's perfect to feel a lot. Let the feelings be strong when they're positive and include love and light, and acknowledge them when they are destructive, work with them and transpire them, and use them as experience. The worst thing we can do is to suppress our feelings and pretend they are not there. Some people think it's macho not to feel, and they are bragging about it and look down on those who do feel. That's not the best path to go if you're human. What's unique about us is that we have such a wide variety of DNA from a huge variety of galactic and intergalactic beings as part of the living library, and in that sense we are divine and have enormous potentials if we are willing to develop them. We are still primitive now in comparison with other ETS out there, but they too know our potentials and want to see us grow. If we grow, they grow. By some aliens we are considered royalty, because Homo sapiens sapiens in its current version has DNA from A.A.M.I. Royalty, and that of the Orion Queens, as an intermarriage between the two species was orchestrated in the far past. The ones who mixed their genes with ours were both of the A.A.M.I. royal bloodline as well as that of the Orion Queens. Another thing to remember is that you never need to know how you are going to get from one point in your development to another. All you need to do is to put a clear picture in your mind of what you want, and the universe will adjust accordingly. Don't write down a long future journey book telling you step by step what you need to do. Let your energies take care of it. This is not some lofty new age statement, it can be backed up scientifically and has to do with basic energy flows. And if other pictures keep popping up that are not exactly in line with your first picture, perhaps you need to refine the first picture a bit and your energies will be clear again. Recognize the changes in your life and look where they are taking you. If they are not taking you to where you want to go, you are changing your original picture subconsciously to adjust to situations around you. If this happens, you are not in charge and you let others take the steering wheel. I am aware of that sometimes things need to be done that are not 100% in line with our basic intentions, but when this happens and you need to go along with it for any good reason, still keep your basic intentions in mind. Tell yourself that this is just a temporary thing I need to do, but then I'm on my way again. However, most of the time, when you feel you don't want to do something, you can say no, unless it has to do with your job. Even with your job, if it leads you off track, it's time to look for another one. To go back to fear and anxiety a little bit more, when we're in fear, the ones behind the scenes are in control, and when we love, we are in control. Or, the power ends where the fear begins. They have no way of controlling positive energies. The only thing they can do when they see people getting more and more positive is to counter it with more and more negativity, which is being done now. If we are aware of this and don't let it affect us anymore, they have lost and can do nothing but give up. We want to reach that point as a humanity. And remember, it's the few who are controlling the many. The ETs who are behind the global elite need humans to execute their commands. So long as they do so, they are not breaking the law of free will, because these human puppets have agreed to do this against their own species. The ET controllers can't just come down in spaceships and take control, that would be an invasion and they would be stopped by those who guard this planet. Worst case scenario would be a war between the invader force and the Guardians. They want to avoid that for more reasons than avoiding a war. To control humanity, they need to keep hidden in us in ignorance, or their mission will fail. They need humans to keep humans in fear and agony, and this is how they have controlled us for thousands of years. This may change soon, and the non-human controllers may show their real faces in a disclosure that is well planned and not in our favor, but for now they still want to keep hidden for a while. Fear is a choice, and a part of raising consciousness is about eradicating fear. Pleiadian Lecture, October 9, 2010, Revolution of the Mind, CD number 1, Track 13. Fear can be a good thing in a fight or flight situation when we are directly faced with a challenge that is threatening us or our family/friends. However, it's not appropriate to choose fear in situations that are instigated by people who want to control us for their own purposes with imperatives that are destructive for us. If we can't handle the situation right away, like with the ET control on Earth, instead of being fearful, we need to raise our frequency above fear so that the negative forces cannot control us anymore. And most importantly, if you look at a current situation and there is really nothing there to be fearful about, don't engage in fear that is not appropriate, or it will play you right into the hands of those in power. Look around in your local universe and tell yourself you live in a safe world. The flowers are growing outside your window, the neighbor is cutting the lawn and the birds are singing. Tell yourself that your world is safe and there is nothing to be fearful about. And if you have a chaotic job where everybody is so stressed out that they start attacking each other because they are too overwhelmed to take in any communication whatsoever, and everybody is afraid to lose their job, you need to tell yourself that in the midst of this chaos you're safe and everything will work out better than best for you. Repeat this to yourself as often as you can, take deep breaths, and if possible, do short meditations, and just do the best you can with the best of attitudes. Soon enough, your local universe will adjust, people will get more peaceful around you if you know how to manage your own energies. On the opposite side of the coin, if you believe that all bad things possible can happen to you, and these things are always heading in your direction, and perhaps tomorrow you will get fired, stand on the street without a home, then this is what your future will get. You have probably seen people standing there, sinking in quicksand, and while sinking they are saying, "See, I told you this was going to happen." Yes, this person is right, he or she told you this was going to happen, and that's why it happened. There is great power in beliefs, so be aware of what your beliefs are. If there is no immediate reason to be afraid, tuck your fear away and say, "Fear, only come out when I really need you." Sometimes it takes a while to change thought patterns, but that's the key thing right now, to change old thought patterns that don't support your growth. A good practice to change your belief system may be to sit down for as much time you can spare, 10 to 20 minutes a day, in a quiet, safe environment, all by yourself, and say to yourself with intention, "I can be prosperous, I can live safely without fear, I am living in a safe environment and everything that happens will turn out in my favor and be better than best." Then, when you're done, you can go back to your life again and live it according to your old, non-functional belief systems. However, if you do this practice regularly, you will find after a while that it's ridiculous to live the old way. Why hang on to old beliefs when I can live by the new ones? Your mind will change its pattern. Another important thing to conquer fear or other emotions that bring you down is to have a good support system. Having at least one person you can bounce ideas on is extremely helpful. Not everybody is that lucky, and if not, practices like the one above will still work. Believe in yourself and trust that you can change in a way that will turn a vicious cycle around. It's all about beliefs, and beliefs can change, but it's up to each and everyone to be willing to make the changes. Once we have mastered these obstacles and we don't fall for the fearful news we hear about in the media, and we see through the fact that we humans are still used as slave labor for ET races, we can start changing our vibrations to the point that we break the frequency fence and see the multiverse on the other side, depict it. Powerful images can work as guidelines. We are the winners in this game. If you've followed me so far, we're on the same frequency and we are here to break free, and many, many more will follow. The Wes Penre Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The First Level of Learning. http://wespenre.com. Solution Section. Solution Paper Number 3, Expansion on the Living Library. DNA, an Ascension. By Wes Penre, Friday, August 7, 2011. 1. Borrowing from, and returning to, the living library. We live in a universe which is a free will zone, which means that anyone is allowed to do whatever they want to do in order to contribute to the overall experiment. The living library was set up as a giant peaceful experiment, where virtually everything that's growing and developing in form of plant life, animal and human life were seeded onto this planet during different time periods. The flora and the fauna come from all over the universe, not only from our galaxy. Our planet is not the only living library in the universe, but certainly one of the richest and most beautiful. Not only the Pleiadians call this planet a living library, it's a term generally used, so it seems, by aliens who know about it, and all aliens that are here on the planet or in Earth near space do. A library, per definition, is a place where you can borrow something if you promise to return it to keep the library going. So, in cosmic terms, it's nothing wrong with genetic engineering of the species of this planet, as long as it is done to enhance life and the library in general. It is not meant to be taken advantage of, and to harm the species living here. Therefore, what ETs like the Anunnaki, the Zeta Greys, and a few others do is not considered ethical or just. This is why ET renegades like the Pleiadians, and confederations like the Guardian Alliance are helping us regaining our perception of multidimensionality. Almost everything and anything you can think of that we humans need in form of food, medicine, and life-enhancing herbs etc. is present here on Earth, in nature. We basically don't need any pharmaceutical drugs to suppress the symptoms of underlying causes, which is the way most diseases are treated today. The remedy for basically any human condition exists in nature. The problem is that we have forgotten how to use the living library. We go out in the forest, are climbing mountains, or walking by the ocean, without understanding what it is we are seeing around us. All the plants, mushrooms, herbs, they just grow there and we have no clue what they can be used for. 2. From the Dark Ages to Big Pharma and the witch hunt on alternative medicine. In the Dark Ages, the witches knew pretty well how to use the living library. However, the Catholic Church, who didn't want people to be well, accused those who used the library to heal people of witchcraft and burned them on the stake. Eventually, this very important knowledge disappeared from the Western world, or went underground. Also, much of it is still known by natives and tribes around the world, who have still not been totally destroyed by Western intruders. We learn in school that punishment for witchcraft is something of the past and of course doesn't exist anymore. Wrong. The only difference is that it's not done so overtly, and no one is burned at the stake. Today, we have Big Pharma, the pharmaceutical industry, who have more insights in the hidden knowledge of the living library than common man. However, they know they can't just take a plant or an herb, take patent on it, and sell it exclusively as their own product. Instead, they take ingredients from the library and add chemicals to it in a mix and can then patent it and sell it, name it, and call it their own. People don't get side effects from the herbs or plants, they get side effects from the chemicals and whatever else Big Pharma put into the pills we get at the pharmacy. Doctors, of course, have not really been taught how to cure somebody's issues, unless it directly has to do with surgery, broken bones, and other obvious things. Instead, they are suppressing the symptoms by giving the patient a pill or two. Most PCPs, primary care physicians, see a lot of patients a day. I am working in the medical field, closely with doctors, and notice that they sometimes see 30 to 40 patients a day, handling 2 to 4 patients simultaneously, putting them in different patients' rooms and go back and forth between them in order to be more efficient. It gives each patient around 5 to 10, if you're lucky you get 15, minutes to explain their problem and for the doctor to find a solution. The solution, more often than not, is to write a prescription for a drug, increasing the strength of a drug the patient is already taking, or changing to another drug. No one cares to look at the underlying reason for the condition the patient has. They just ignore it and gives the patient the most sufficient drug to suppress the condition, in order for the doctor to go over to the next patient. It's a functionally insane money machine. The doctors often get commission on the drugs they prescribe, and drug representatives from Big Pharma, drug reps, who visit the clinics regularly, are there to promote their company's drugs, sometimes bribe the doctor, offering him/her a cruise, first class, or something similar if they switch to this particular company's drug. I have seen this happen on at least 2 occasions. I wasn't supposed to know, so how many times did it really happen and I never found out? The pharmaceutical industry is making an amazing amount of money on people's illnesses. This industry is gigantic to say the least, and it's obvious that no one with such power and wealth, making profit on people's misery, would like us to be well. That would defeat their purpose and be an enormous threat to the entire industry. Think what would happen if people all of a sudden got well, or even worse, if they got well by using other means than the health industry, which is really the sick industry. What a nightmare, not only for Big Pharma and the doctors' offices and hospitals, but for all other industries that on a higher level are working in unison to keep people sick. I am talking about Monsanto, the US-based multinational agricultural biotechnology corporation which gives us genetically manipulated food that makes us ill. I am talking about companies like McDonald's and other like-minded corporations selling junk food to people which makes us overweight and gives us heart problems. People go there to comfort themselves after a long, multitasking day at work or because it tastes good and is fast and easy. See, all these industries, and more, are working together to keep the business going. They are feeding off our sickness and disease, and so are the insurance companies who also are dependent upon that you are sick. A happy, healthy citizen is not the goal of the modern society. Huge profit and greed is one reason why the witch hunt is still alive and well. The attacks on alternative medicine and those who are practicing alternative methods to heal the patients and even find the underlying causes to their illnesses are intense. The best weapon Big Pharma has is the law that you need a license to practice medicine. In reality, this means that if you are not part of the so-called health industry and play by the rules, which means you can only promote medicine distributed by the drug companies. You can go to jail for practicing medicine without a license. This law practically takes care of all resistance. Homeopathic, nephropathic, and naturopathic practices are closed down and the owners punished by law. This is not meant as an attack on doctors, they are just part of the system and thus part of the problem. The cause to the real problem is again, of course, interdimensional. We can choose to look at it from whichever level we want, and there's another level right above it which controls that level. But let's stay on a 3D level a little bit longer for the purpose of this paper. 2.1 The Witch Hunt on Mind-Altering Drugs. There are certain substances in the living library, as when taken in will expand our consciousness and connect with Earth and the multiverse on a higher level. Poppy seed is one, opium, and cannabis, marijuana, another. When you know how to make opium out of poppy, and morphine/heroin out of opium, you have a strong painkiller, provided by nature itself. Opium and morphine, even heroin in the early part of the 1900s, are used by big pharma as painkillers. Opium is included in hydrocodone, Vicodin, oxycodone, and OxyContin, although synthetic. It's perfectly okay to go to the doctor and get a prescription if needed, but if you're in pain and don't have insurance and know how to make opium from the living library to ease your pain, it would be illegal. I am not suggesting people should go out and make opium, morphine, or heroin left and right, but it's the suppression of knowledge and the suppression of free will that make people obsessed with things. If they can't have it, they feel they must have it. If people had been given the knowledge of the living library and been taught that all medication they could possibly need is out there for the body and mind to use, it wouldn't be such a big deal. There would always be those who overuse drugs, but it's each and everyone's responsibility to take the consequences for their actions. Then we have the hallucinogenic drugs, like LSD and mushrooms. The LSD molecule was discovered by Dr. Hoffman in the 1930s, and was later introduced to the public by our own intelligence agencies as an experiment during the hippie era in the 1960s and 70s to calm the Vietnam protesters down, among other things. It was also an experiment in mind control, but it became illegalized due to that you can't control somebody who is expanding his/her mind. As usual, some abused it and went insane, while others had wonderful, mind-expanding experiences from it. It's not for everybody. Mind-altering drugs must have a purpose for the person who takes it. It's synthetic, but the mushrooms out in nature are not, of course. And you will have a similar experience by eating them. Again, if a person wants to try a mind-altering drug, it should be in modesty and with a purpose in mind, not just getting high. Because these drugs can take you anywhere. The interesting thing, though, is that the government forbids us to use the living library, as if they owned it. It's illegal to eat hallucinogenic mushrooms as well. Mescaline was used broadly and widely 100 to 150 years ago, especially among artists and creative people, but also among businessmen and regular people. It was the big drug at the time, and it was free. People have always looked for something to break down the barriers and to help them understand reality. These days, when things are heavily controlled in general, so of course are these mind-expanding plants and herbs. I have left marijuana to last, because it's the worst contradiction of them all. The medical field has acknowledged that the plant has healing effects on a patient, it calms people down, it's a great natural pain reliever, and it has good mental benefits as well if used with care. So in certain states in the US, we have something called medical marijuana, which is given to people who would benefit from it, but you'll go to jail if you plant it and use it yourself without permission from a doctor. It's of course hypocrisy. And the animals have always eaten mind-expanding plants and herbs to expand their minds, because it's free out there to eat. And believe it or not, but animals are much more multidimensional than we are, not only because of their intake, but just naturally. The deer, for example, love to eat various mushrooms and get high. I am not making this up. In the ancient days, people had cannabis tattoos and were even buried with their cannabis seeds beside them. They were using the library, knowing what was in it. They borrowed some and planted some, like was the purpose of the library in the first place. Our ancestors were far more familiar with their environment than we are. This plant has long enhanced people's consciousness when taken in moderate doses. This, and other plants from the library, can literally open doors of perception into higher densities and realities, and hence speed up the ascension process to a certain degree. One can actually see other realities, which are basically as real as this one. Aldous Huxley wrote the book Doors of Perceptions decades ago, which was a huge inspiration for Jim Morrison and the Doors. They got the name for the band from that book. The rest of the band could take these drugs more moderately, but the possessed Morrison could not, and after a while that had more to do with his entity possession than to expand his mind consciously. I am not suggesting that the reader should be illegal and go out and do things that can get you in trouble with the law by any means, but if you still decide to use any of the above, use it wisely and have respect for the substance, don't go overboard. It's a natural thing, but we must learn how to use things in moderation. For the record, I am not taking any of these plants and herbs myself, and haven't done for years. I tried most of it in my younger days, but now I can reach the same heights by working with myself. However, I see nothing wrong with using what is there for us to use, only the government does. By the way, did you know that the founding fathers grew hemp and smoked marijuana? I suggest you check out the brilliant author, Doug Uerche, whom also happens to be a friend of mine. I have posted quite a few articles of his on my Illuminati News website, and he digs deeply into the marijuana and LSD conspiracies and much, much more. 3. The future back to using the living library. Years ago, people thought they were really on track by going organic. This is a good start, although it will not quite do the trick anyway because of the way food is manufactured, even when it's organic. However, food grown with conscious awareness is what we need to regain our health, not just without the lack of poison. This is a whole other level. The Pleiadians have a lot to say about this, because their ancestors were the ones, in conjunction with other beings, who created the living library in the first place. Magnets, pyramid shapes, planting things underneath a pyramid, and moving a pyramid around a garden can generate as much energy as the native people did in the US and around the world to balance the forces, always talking to, and blessing the earth. Once in a while, kissing your hand and putting it down on the ground. We have so much to learn from those whom we almost totally terminated in our insanity. Pleiadian Lecture, December 4 to 5, 2010, Bursts of Acceleration, CD number 2, Track 7. Today, when we take everything for granted, humanity as a whole has a great need to feel gratitude for the intelligence of the elements, the magic of it, and the movements of things, and how nature feeds us. To put out crystals can work. Talking to plants. In the early 1950s, L. Ron Hubbard, 1911 to 1986, the founder of Scientology, was measuring the consciousness of plants and a picture was taken of him putting electrodes on tomato plants. He knew already then that plants had consciousness, but all the way up to present day, this picture has created great ridicule amongst scientists and the general public. No, he was just way before his time, and now it's catching up with him. Fewer and fewer people are laughing. There is no doubt that there is consciousness in everything, and talking to plants that you are planting and growing in your garden, and giving them love is the most fundamental thing you can do to get healthy products. Also, always talk to the sun when dealing with the elements and planting things. The highest levels of consciousness are light and unconditional love, and the sun is giving us both light, love, and information. She is our higher self and she will hear you and know who you are when you address her directly. All these things are absolutely necessary to grow healthy food. In the old days, before the industrialization and further back, people used to go out in the field, lay down together and make love. Of course, it can be a totally different sensation to make love outside than to always do it inside, but the sexual energies are very powerful and the orgasm exponentially so. It literally opens up portals and shoots the energies out into the universe, but also enhances growth around the area where the lovemaking took place. Especially if the people who do it are already very close and truly love each other and are on the same frequency, the effects can be very profound. The energies highly increased the fertility of the land. They shared their joy with all the plants and herbs in the garden with the energy built in an orgasmic nature. That was what lovemaking in the garden was about in the old days. People had a greater knowledge of things that matters back then. These days, there is not much sharing anymore. People are suing each other as soon as they get a chance, finding new ways to earn an easy buck so they can get lazier and be home and watch more TV. That is not coming together, it's separation. And not only are we separated as human beings by technology and such, we have also totally forgotten how to energetically connect with nature as a human species. We take the earth for granted, rape her, disrespect her, forget that she exists, and know nothing about that she's a living being, hosting people like us so we can have an experience. Where is the gratitude, the recognition, the love for our planet? Where's the respect? In spite of the lack of all these things, Mother Earth is still housing us patiently, but she is tumbling and struggling under the pressure. Still, she is giving us all we need, and more, to survive and have a more than meaningful life. We need to learn how to share our love and consciousness with Mother Earth and use her and give to her the way it was supposed to be. Yes, the living library is beautiful to look at, Earth is stunning in her presence, and it's for us to enjoy, but it's also meant for us to use it as a living garden, with respect and a give-and-take situation, where we replant what we borrow in a constant symbiosis with nature. By being in nature and relearning how to deal with the elements, we learn when there's going to be rain, sun, storms, thunder. You will soon get to a level where we can sense it on a metaphysical level and in your body, rather than only know it by visual signs. It's a part of being multidimensional. The global elite, who know the power of words, always use the term fight for freedom or war against drugs, etc. Like we've discussed earlier, by fighting something we are actually getting more of what we don't want, and we are creating separation. Instead, let's claim what we want, we claim freedom, we reclaim the living library. This way we are already creating inside what it is we want. Many have asked me if Earth is a common planet out there, with all its beauty and variety in plant and animal life. Have taken part of the information from many different metaphysical sources, I have come to the conclusion that although Earth is not the only planet out there with tremendous beauty, it is in larger terms quite unique. There are myriads of planets in the cosmos which host intelligent life, but if we would travel to them, we may find many of them deserted and quite barren. First of all, it's a matter of landing at a time where there is life on the planet, which is not always easy to do if we don't know the right coordinates and the point in local time. Others are cloaked with technology so that they look barren when they are not, but it's also very common that intelligent life forms live inside the planet instead of on its surface. Earth is unique in its beauty and its variety, but also in that the inner Earth is very rich on life forms, both plants, animals, and higher intelligent beings. We will discuss this more in a separate paper. And once we have entered the caverns leading to the portals to inner Earth and been able to pass through them, we will find a beautiful world inside Earth as well. So let's feel gratitude for having the privilege of being here now at this time, on a remarkable planet which is willing to host us, take care of our bodies who are our tickets to here, and start getting along with self and others, no matter differences. Enjoy the living library and use it with care and respect, but use it. Forgive those who have done you harm, and forgive yourself and make up for the harm you may have done, and if you can't meet with people to tell them in person, do it in thought and in dream state, and you will heal along the lines of time and come together as a whole earth being. Your different incarnations will be healed by the work you are doing now, and you can complete Experiment Earth with grace and pride, having had the most valuable overall experience possible. Enjoy life, the planet, and everything on it, and realize it is here for you and you are here for her. And you and Mother Earth help each other heal. 4. DNA, what it is, and how to reclaim what was taken from us. DNA. This is a very touchy subject. Scientists, whether they are mainstream or rouge, have very firm ideas of what DNA is, or even better, what it's not. Earth science when comes to DNA/RNA is significantly different than that told by most metaphysical sources. Dr. A.R. Borden of Life Physics Group California, LPGC, whom I've come to know quite well over the last months to almost a year now, is quite upset about the way metaphysics often looks upon the DNA problem humans seem to have. He told me that DNA/RNA needs to be understood for humankind to continue to evolve. To that, I agree 100%. It's extremely important. I gave him the metaphysical version, or the watered-down version of it, rather, thinking he might already know that information. Now, afterwards, I don't think he ever looked too deeply into it, thinking it was too way out there and inaccurate. Dr. Borden, when he has time, hopefully, will write a simplified scientific explanation of what RNA/DNA is, so I am not going to go into the mainstream version of what it is and how it works until I have read his article, and in the meantime I am going to dig into the metaphysical aspect of this subject, which in my opinion is explaining it in much easier terms but is also making a lot of sense. Until I am proven otherwise, I will look at earth science when comes to this subject as accurate up to a certain point to where our human knowledge ends and the metaphysical knowledge starts. I think it's very important that we study this issue from a broader perspective, no matter if our scientists agree or not. Some of these metaphysical sources are of high quality, and I have looked into them quite deeply and find no reason why they would deceive us on this subject, and they are very serious about it, too, because they know the importance. They also tell us straight out that even the best of scientists on Earth do not understand the metaphysical and multidimensional concept of the RNA/DNA, and that it will probably take generations before that will happen. After all, the double helix was not discovered until 1958, http://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/DNA number sign history_of_DNA_research right parenthesis comma 53 years ago. Also, in his essay, The Link, Borden admits to that we know very little about RNA-DNA. The question is, those scientists who discard the following information, can they create a new species with the knowledge they have now? The answer is no. Can the metaphysical beings who are explaining how DNA-RNA works create a new species with the information they have? The answer is yes. That should speak volumes. A common misunderstanding is that we think we can track the genome, or the gene pool, but it's not going to be totally successful, because in the multiverse, it changes all the time, and it's fluid. In the far, far past, in our terms, a lot of different species throughout the universe contributed their DNA to the living library. Cosmic master biogeneticists were then able to use these different forms of DNA to design functional life forms for the living library. They seeded the library. Today we can see all these different races on Earth: Caucasians, black people, red people, yellow people, brown people, all sorts of humans. We are all looking similar, but we don't look the same. Same thing with the cosmic beings, they all have a head, a torso, 2 arms, and 2 legs, because it's a prototype, a template throughout cosmos, but from that stems a huge variety. Not all worlds are the same. Not all of them are a mix of different genetics. Earth is an experiment, and in these terms quite, but not totally, unique. Now, when things are speeding up here, all these cosmic beings who contributed to our genetics are very interested to see the product of their contribution. This is not a small thing, it's the end product of a long-term experiment with a biokind, humans, consisting of DNA from a myriad of beings in order to become the gatekeepers, the library cards to the living library. 300,000 years ago, we were already almost evolved to accomplish this task when we were interrupted in the process, but now all these species from cosmos are holding their breaths to see how well their experiment turned out. The human race is not just any race in the cosmos, some say we are royal in more than one definition of the word. The DNA which was part of the mix was contributed by royal races out in the universe, and we are connected to them. And what we do with our energy, due to the connection we have with all these species, affects them as well. Yes, the human race is special, indeed. This little planet in the outskirts of a galaxy of billions of galaxies can have a great impact on many things in cosmos. Mind-boggling? Big responsibility? Absolutely. Separate from our genome code are other codes, master numbers and information that is invaluable to the multiverse. So in larger terms, great beings have stored things within the DNA of Earth life forms, not only in humans, but in rocks, plants, and animals as well. This is for us to explore. Until we know how to read it and understand it's there, we can search forever. Pleiadian Lecture August 13, 2011 to August 14, 2011, Awakening to the Sun, CD3, Track Number 4. This was a way to have things hidden in plain sight. Many cosmic beings are very anxious to find out what is in our DNA, and that's part of why we have those abduction scenarios. Beings, especially those whose DNA is deteriorating, like is the case with the Zeta Greys, are very curious to find out the secrets of our DNA. Where is the gold? Where is the gem? They want to know so they can use it. However, they do not have the key to unlock the secrets, so they are not succeeding to their huge frustration. We have sister planets in other parts of the galaxy, on the other side, far away from Earth, which are sort of parallel worlds, where there are similar things stored. The beauty we see around us is quite unique for our planet and its sister planets in other parts of the Milky Way, in terms of third density, and we, who are the living library, are the ones who are creating this beauty together. Humans, plants, animals. Can you feel something bigger emerging in these pictures? Good, because this is much bigger than any of us here on Earth can yet perceive. Our DNA is like a modem, it allows us to operate in different realities, in different dimensions and densities simultaneously. So, the DNA is in other words multidimensional and not something located only in the 3D reality, like most scientists think. We have created a world based on linear time, based on separation. There is nothing wrong with this, and in fact, it's been a wonderful learning experience for us and for interdimensional beings who have followed our progress, but the game is over and we are going back to thinking multi-D. The 3D part of the experiment is over. We need to expand into the cosmos by activating the light inside of us so that the experiment can get to another level. The universe in our sector of the galaxy is still relatively unstable in the sense of polarity and the respect thereof. Wars are still raging, imperatives are clashing with imperatives, there is unhappiness out there as well as there is happiness, joy, and peace. Humans can become the stabilizers as the key masters to the living library, and that is our task in the future if we are up to it and can pull through. And yes, I believe we can. 4.1 The early human had 12-strand DNA, corresponding with 12 chakras. In metaphysics, it is quite established that humankind was quite highly evolved before the Anunnaki came to Earth and started manipulating our DNA, some 300 to 250,000 years ago. At that time, there was more than one version of human-like creatures on Earth, but at least one of these species was quite highly evolved. This also makes sense if we are to believe the creator gods, whose ancestors are equivalent to many of these metaphysical sources. They are here to re-establish the living library and remedy what was destroyed or altered. Even Rouge scientists, like these of LPGC, know that life was seeded and that the original creator gods of this living library were the Lyrans, the Pleiadians, and a few others. But the agreement ends where DNA starts, more or less. However, if we think about it, the original creator gods, who seeded and planted the living library, also created evolved beings who were supposed to guard and use the library for their own pleasure and others from outer space. It is only logical that they would create a quite highly evolved, intelligent bio-mind, which could then be housed by a soul/information cloud who wanted to experience the living library and evolve here. So, at one time, our DNA was intact. The earlier humans had 12-strand DNA, one corresponding with each chakra. 7 chakras are placed within the body, and 5 outside of it. We were like a wonderful library ourselves, where the information was all catalogued and referenced and we could find anything we wanted to find instantly. The 7 body chakras are as follows. Chakras 1 to 3 are dealing with survival, sexuality, and perceptual feeling, also called the root chakras. The above 7 chakras are the ones we most often work with because they are connected with the body. Albeit, many people think these chakras is all there is. The Pleiadians and the Guardian Alliance, among others, are working on the idea of a universe based on 12 when comes to human perceptions, and therefore the chakra system is based on this number as well. To go further up the chakra system and connect with the non-physical chakras, the person needs to figure out what is going on by finding new ways to do so, without even being totally sure it is real. Chakra 8 is within our realm of activity. It hovers 12 inches or more above our heads. Most people keep their 8th chakra close to the physical body. Chakra 9 is also quite close to the body, within a few feet from it. When these 9 helices are formed, this chakra will move out into the atmosphere of Earth to become more of an Earth chakra, connecting into the grid work. It's a link. Chakra 10 is much further out, as are the 11th and 12th chakras. The 10th chakra, once it is in line and plugged in, will be in your solar system. Chakra 11 will move out into our galactic system. Chakra 12 will be located and anchored someplace in this universe. Chakra 4 is the heart, center of compassion and connectedness to all things. Chakra 5 is the throat chakra, related to speech. Chakra 6 is the third eye, the vision. Chakra 7 is the crown chakra, which opens to the knowingness that one's identity goes beyond the physical realm. As we evolve back to what we once were, we will receive information from these personal centers, because they are collective centers as well. As we learn to translate the chakra experiences, life is not the same anymore. And it's happening now on the planet, big time. With all these 12 chakras open, you can imagine what possibilities are opening up as well. There was a time, more than 250,000 years ago, when the human species occupied higher dimensional frequencies and we had the ability to surf through realities and manipulate matter. The Wes Penre Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The First Level of Learning. http://wespenre.com. Solution Section. Solution Paper Number 3, Expansion on the Living Library. DNA, an Ascension. By Wes Penre, Friday, August 7, 2011. Part 2. 4.2 How we were unplugged from the multiverse and how to plug in again. When the new owners of this real estate called Earth arrived, around 450 to 500,000 years ago, everything changed. The Anunnaki wanted a race intelligent enough to be able to understand commands and execute them, but not intelligent enough to question them or rebel against the gods. Apparently, the apes and monkeys inhabiting Earth at that time weren't smart or good enough, and didn't have the right attributes to accomplish the task. The evolved humans did. However, these human, highly multidimensional beings, who basically were a threat to the Anunnaki anyway due to that they were too similar to them in intelligence and awareness, but much more mellow, fit the task pretty well. The only problem was that they were way too evolved and intelligent. So what the Anunnaki did, with the help of technology and trickery, much of which the Earth humans lacked, was to manipulate their DNA. They mixed their own 11 strands 6 with our own 12 strand, unplugged 10 of the 12 strands and created a 2-strand DNA, the double helix, which is all that most humans have activated up to this day. This effectively disconnected us from the universe and the multiverse, left us with what today's scientists call junk DNA, and thus created a frequency fence with a narrow band in which most humans operate today. We have forgotten who we are and what our purpose is, where we came from and who created us. I can see a very sophisticated agenda playing out above our heads. The Anunnaki lied to the Sumerians because they knew they would come back full force and take over again, and they want to do so as peacefully as possible, having already manipulated mankind by telling us through ancient scriptures that we owe our intelligence and evolvement to them, when the opposite is more likely to be true. They robbed us of our connectedness with the multiverse, and due to our naivety, we apparently didn't see what was coming, or for some reason didn't do anything about it. We may not have been able to, because we were a peaceful and playful race. We don't know the exact history, yet, so another option is that the Anunnaki took what they wanted, called abductions, and killed off the rest. Then, in fact, they have infiltrated, and to some degree even created, many of our organized religions and channeled prophecies like these in the Book of Revelation, so that their second coming will look like God's prophecy fulfilled. Use discernment here. I can understand LPGC's reasoning when they say that we need to find a way to defend ourselves against invader forces who are interested in this real estate, and A.M.I. The Nibiruans are offering just that to our human representatives, albeit self-elected, amongst other things like teaching us how to build a peaceful relationship with each other and our cosmic brothers and sisters and how to be self-governed. Well, this sounds fantastic on the surface, but for the reader who has followed this series of papers and read Sitchin's books, there may have arisen a certain amount of doubt about the sincerity of our giant, literally speaking, cosmic relatives. It seems ironic that this species who has created so many wars and so much havoc on this planet should teach us about living in peace. Now, let us return to the DNA. Picture yourself a fiber optic cable with a 12 fiber optic highway running through the bigger cable, and then you unplug 10 of them and let 2 of them continue running. The other ones are still there, but not connected and activated anymore. Even the 2 remaining are then being altered and manipulated. This may be a poor and inaccurate picture from a scientific perspective, but it may help people understand what happened to our DNA. Everything that was not necessary for survival and anything that would keep us informed was unplugged. Left was the double helix, which locked us into controllable frequencies 7 and unplugged us from the cosmos. The root chakras and the heart chakras were still slightly open, as was the throat chakra, but chakras 7 to 12 were successively closed. Because, in addition to the frequency fence or quarantine we talked about earlier, the Anunnaki also created a literal frequency fence around our planet to be able to control how much of the human frequencies could be modulated and changed. Thus, it made it very difficult for the higher frequencies of light, bringing gamma-ray information to the planet, to penetrate and keep us informed and updated. Once in a while, when the higher frequencies of gamma-ray information managed to penetrate in spite, there wasn't anybody there to receive the information. As always, like with any information, one has to ask oneself, who's to gain from telling us? And this is the whole reason why I am not swallowing the scientific idea of DNA/RNA, hook and sink. The metaphysical information is the extension of what is already known by scientists here on Earth, mainstream of rogue. And who benefits? However I twist and bend it and look at it from everybody's perspective involved, I can only see that we humans gain in conjunction with those who are trying to help on the metaphysical level. If this was told with evil intents, the motives are not there, neither is the negative manipulation, ever so subtle, but if we think of it as an effort to make us grow, the motives are there, including the fact that it feels right. As our DNA is evolving towards its original 12 stand, the new helices are being formed as the light-encoded filaments are starting to bundle themselves together. As this is happening, we are creating a more evolved nervous system which allows much more data to move itself into our consciousness. We will begin to be able to use the full capacity of the brain, which will create effects unimaginable for the presently evolving human. It doesn't all have to do with increased intelligence, although it's a part of it, but by connecting our dormant extended nervous system with the cosmos, we will become multidimensional in thought and action again. And not only that, we will realize and experience the true nature of our body. We will find out what this amazing body we inhabit can really do, and how important it is for our growth and multidimensional existence. It's not just something you carry along to be able to go from one place to another, or do certain tasks, or accomplish some skills we are so used to today. The body is a container and a storage place for all the multidimensional knowledge we'll need to expand our consciousness. Therefore, we would benefit a lot from feeling gratitude not only for having one of these amazing bodies, but also for having one here and now. There are an incredible amount of discarnate beings who would love to have a body in this space and time, here on Earth, This is when and where things are happening. In this little window of time, just before what is called the end times, with the help of a healthy and well-maintained body, we can evolve and regain our 12-strand DNA and connect with the supercosmos we call the multiverse. So it's high time to start taking care of the body we have, start eating well, preferably plant and seed your own food, exercise, have good sex with someone you love who is vibrating on a similar frequency as yourself, love yourself and your body, talk to your body and compliment it, love and assist others when possible, give them compliments when appropriate, get plenty of rest, slow down your pace, connect with nature, and have fun. Get together with people of your kind, get guidance from your spirit guides, and expand your consciousness by using and trusting your intuition. How is that for a start? Doesn't sound boring to me. Although we do live in exciting times, not everybody will be able to enjoy it as much. We, who are aware of all this, are the forerunners, those who are paving the road for others. It is our responsibility to anchor the higher frequencies into this reality and ground it. There will be tremendous chaos coming up, and people around us will cave in and have nervous breakdowns, because their nervous systems get overwhelmed with all the changes of which they have no awareness. We will sometimes feel helpless when we see those around us whom we know or don't know at all, break down before our eyes. Have compassion and show understanding when this happens. Be a stable point, give them the best of your energies and show them you care and that you love them. This will not always be enough, and when you notice there is not much you can do, just let go. After a while you will realize that you can't save the world on your own, but you can help raising the vibrations and let those who are ready follow. That is all, and the best, you can do. Remember, not everybody here on earth today were incarnated with the purpose to make it through. Accept that and let go, even if it's a partner or a relative. It will cause us grief and sadness, but if we learn more about the higher purpose and why we all are here, it will be an easier transition for all of us. Another important thing to be able to reconnect the unplugged helices is oxygenation. Oxygen feeds the coding and awakens the adjunct DNA. People have asked me what's the best way to meditate, and although there is no straight answer to that question because it's individual, breathing exercises is something I would highly recommend, and it's always safe. I can personally not think of any single exercise that would be more valuable, if I could only choose one. There are many ways to do it, and each one of us have to feel it out and find a way that works for us, but the best one I've found so far is the quantum pause, which is also the one I use myself. It was originally published on the Wingmakers website, http://wingmakers.com, http://eventtemples.com, but I also have included it here on this website, http://wespenry.com/quantum-pause.htm right parenthesis. I will post more good exercises in time. Once the 12 strands are activated, our eyesight will change, our hearing will be different, our lifespan will increase, etc. No technology needed. People are mutating so quickly that some scientists call the whole process a disease and some are very concerned about it. Billions of dollars are being used for DNA research. Much of this mutation happens in dream state and gradually we will develop new abilities. We will automatically know many things and be very certain that this is how it is, even when people try to prove you wrong. Ever wondered why certain tribes, especially in Africa, are using bones to find things out? Here in the Western world we call it superstition, but it's far from it. These tribes have carried on ancient knowledge over time. This is confirmed by the Pleiadians as well. The skeleton and our bones correspond with the information stored in our DNA. When our skeletal form is in alignment, the energy from sacred power sites is released, the cosmic rays are pulled into our bodies, and the light-encoded filaments inside our cells begin to reorder themselves. The change will be mirrored to us everywhere we look. Once the helices come into full activation, there is an awakening to your inner knowledge, a knowledge that goes beyond what you have been taught. It's the knowledge of self, and the understanding that the physical world is just a little tiny piece of the whole spectrum. When this happens, it's imperative that you keep your position, and believe it, understand it, and know it. Those, not yet activated, may tell you it's not true, get angry and be screaming for proof and evidence, even ridicule you. You may already have experienced this. Ignore it. Don't challenge it. It all has to do with inner experience and knowledge, and if the other person has not seen it, there is no way you can convince him or her about anything you have learned from inner experience. They are still stuck in the human programming. Just make sure you are not starting to doubt what you have learned. In the beginning there may be times when this whole transition can be confusing, because people you used to have a lot in common with are all of a sudden not on your wavelength anymore. However, once activated, there is no way back. If we try to go backwards in attempts to reconnect with the old ways, we will soon find ourselves getting into a depression. Don't go there. Instead, go through the initial confusing changes, and after that, life will start getting quite interesting and exciting, to say the least. I have gone through all the steps in this paragraph myself, so I know what I'm talking about, and if you recognize any of this yourself, I hope my own experiences will be helpful in some way. If ever in doubt regarding your own sanity, think to yourself whether what you've learned have helped you expand your consciousness and quality of living or not, for you, and hopefully for others. If it has, why doubt it? The original creator gods want to see us evolve and break through the third density walls in spite of the darkness that has been swept around us for 300,000 years. Before the Dark Lords took over, the encoding of our DNA was done in such fashion that we could evolve fairly safely no matter what, as long as we were still looking for the light. If we evolve too fast, it will fry our nervous system, and this is something the original creator gods wanted to avoid. So, keep in mind that it is not that we all of a sudden are going to evolve from 2-strand to 12-strand DNA, that are suddenly going to manifest in our earthly and multidimensional bodies. We already have the 12 helices inside of us, and they just need activation. So it's not because of the effects from spiritual and body work that we all of a sudden gain strands out of nowhere. Just want to make this clear, because I've seen on the internet that people sometimes are confusing the two. The changes that will happen to us, biologically, are instituted by cosmic rays. We will notice throughout the changes within us that we start remembering things as our neurological pathways, which have been closed, start to grow, and we can carry more information. The information is sent on waves of light, waves of energy, or beams from the sunday. It's this energy which rearranges our biology. Essentially, what needs to be rearranged is how we perceive the world around us, in other words, our psychic senses. Hence, we will notice a fluctuation in our physical senses. For example, what used to taste good we feel is now hardly edible. What smelled good we may no longer care for, but instead we will find something else we didn't think much of before which now may smell really good. I notice myself that my taste in food has changed tremendously over the last couple of years. I have a very hard time finding something to eat that really tastes good. I can walk up and down the aisles in the grocery store without finding anything I'd like to put in my mouth. It's high time I start growing my own food big time. Other signs of activations are changes in hearing. You start hearing things you didn't hear before, and urges to change habits. You get impulses to do something new or different, and find areas in your life that used to be normal patterns for you are no longer serving you. You may feel the urge to change your lifestyle. This is all part of this energy. As you make these changes, you make more room for the cosmic energies inside your biological being. Besides from periodical increases and changes in your physical senses, you will also start having flashes of increases in non-physical senses, like telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, abilities to have vision in your inner eye, and the ability to just know. You will find that even when someone claims something is in a certain way and have some physical evidence which backs it up and tells you this is common knowledge, you know that's not true. You know there is so much more to the picture, and you are so sure about it that this other person can talk forever and it doesn't make any difference. And I am not talking about unreasonable stubbornness now. There seems to be so much happening behind the scenes, and still the majority of mankind is still clueless. How is this possible? Once upon a time I asked myself that question as well. Still, I am only scratching the surface. What I am telling you is next to nothing in comparison to what is really happening above our heads, if I may use that expression. Even if I spent the rest of my life attempting to touch the first thing about what is really going on a higher level, related to Earth, I would still not be successful. It's overwhelming. Earth is the diamond in the sky, the most precious of precious, and many beings from different densities and dimensions are very interested in what is happening with the living library right now. We are in the spotlight constantly, and we don't even know it. But we don't need to understand everything, we just need to know that we are certainly not alone, and we have many dimensional and interdimensional friendly eyes looking in our direction, most of them without intervening. Our conscious mind is always curious, but there is a point where too much information is defeating the purpose. The clue lies in the unconscious mind, which knows it all, and wants us to feel, connect, and use our intuition. It wants us to use our heart chakra, expand it so we can connect to the much larger, universal energetic heart, as described in the Wingmakers material, http://www.wingmakers.com/downloads/energetic heart left parenthesis print right parenthesis .pdf right parenthesis. 4.3. Healing along the lines of time. Another thing I did intuitively, but read about later on, was to go back in time, this lifetime mostly, and recall events, relationships, happenings that I have had issues with and which were never resolved. I started thinking about them in terms of healing, forgave the person and forgave myself for whatever we did which we regret, and began to change not only the feelings about it by transmitting a lot of love into the incident in my mind, but I also changed the event/relationship, still in my mind, in a way I would have preferred it to be. To my big surprise at the time, the issue went away and hasn't bothered me since. I can also truly feel that something happened on the other end of the spectrum, it affected the other person, and I actually changed the timeline. This is what healing along the lines of time really is. You can change your past, literally, by remodeling it in your mind, and heal the wounds that were part of your past. Same thing can be done with other simultaneous lives you have, or had, depending on perspective, even future events. But how do you connect with other lifetimes? It's easier than you probably think, and it will get even easier as you progress with your DNA reactivation. Have you ever had thoughts coming up from an apparent nowhere, perhaps from old Egypt, the Roman Empire, the medieval times? Have you ever watched a scenery inside your head, almost like a short piece of a movie or just a few pictures flying by? Very often, these film fragments/pictures are from parallel lives in other times. View them, expand on them, listen to them, feel them, smell them, and find out what happened and why they were brought to your attention. Sometimes there is some trauma or unresolved issue connected with the pictures, and once you've found out what it is, you can heal the past and change the outcome. Continue doing so as events come up, but don't go looking for them in your mind, or it could be overwhelming. Let them come to you. As you start doing this, the process will become easier. Are you obsessed with a certain time in the past that you have read everything about that you can get your hands on? Rest assured that at least one of your incarnations was in that particular time. This came natural to me for many reasons, but also because I studied Dianetics in the 1980s. L. Ron Hubbard's bestseller, Dianetics: The Modern Science of Mental Health, which is a great guide. It's not only a deep study into the subconscious mind, but you can also practice what is in there and get amazing results. Although I'm since long finished with Scientology and the imposters who took over after Hubbard, there are gems in Hubbard's work that can't be found anywhere else, not even after all these years. Dianetics is one such piece of work. The book was written in 1950. The world was definitely not ready for that book when it came out, but is more so now. Practicing Dianetics helps you as well to heal along the lines of time, but soon even that book will be obsolete. The Pleiadians, without mentioning Hubbard, teach the same thing. Not because they copy Hubbard, but because that's how the mind works. By doing what's described above, we can heal your timelines, something which is crucial if we want to move on. On another account, but still related, we have people who die and leave their body, realizing they are no longer physical. Now they miss their possessions, their house, their jewels, their money, or whatever it can be people. Although there is of course no way to re-enter the newly exited body and continue the life that just ended, the spirit will hang on to this lifetime for a long time, even after they've had new incarnations, feeling they are missing something, followed by a great sadness or emptiness instead of letting go in the first place. Things like this can be resolved by timeline healing, and we are no longer glued to any particular time on our perceived timeline. We are ready to go to the next level. We all have parallel, legitimate existences in simultaneous time, and it's not that this is the first and only time we have had the chance to connect with them. It happens to people ever so often, but when the memories pop up, our emotional body haven't been able to compute them. Now we do, on an increasing scale. As we heal along the lines of time, we may stumble upon lifetimes where we were working for the dark side, and when we look at it we may feel ashamed, shocked, or in denial. Mind you, we all have these lifetimes, it's a part of the overall experience. If we were good all the time, how can we evolve? We need to experience both sides of the game. Like the Pleiadians say, the only way you can step into this higher frequency and determine the future of your lives on this planet is to not judge your participation within this process. Realize that even when you did things you are not proud of now, it was in an effort to shed light into your own dark sides, and while you were doing it, you were most likely a catalyst for others as well. 4.4 Triple Helix DNA. I want to wedge in some short comments on triple helix DNA, partly because this was a big issue a couple of years ago when I wrote the ebook, The Myth Around Supreme David Rockefeller, 2009, http://supremrockefeller.wordpress.com/right/. The Thule Order in Germany have people they consider being of a certain spiritual awareness, bloodline, or having certain attributes to be candidates for getting their triple helix DNA activated. The candidates send a blood sample to the order, and they run it through a Vril generator, and if the person is ready, his/her triple helix will activate, even on a distance. People can send their samples from wherever around the world, and do not need to travel to Germany to have it done. This is not something I would recommend for many different reasons. Triple helix brings you into the feeling center. The feeling center is emotion, and emotion is your road or bridge or ticket to the spiritual self. When people deny the emotional self, they can't get into the spiritual realms. People who had their triple helix activated have testified of increased psychic powers, higher awareness, and a new, or increased ability to apply magic. This is all relevant to the activation, but what normally happened after a while when Thule had activated certain people was that they either went insane, started feeling awkward in many ways, or if they already had a complicated emotional life, it was intensified. For example, if the receptors are disconnected in the brain as a result of emotional abuse, baggage or bad karma that wasn't dealt with could result on the individual going insane. The bottom line is that DNA shouldn't be activated by artificial means, it's a natural process and shouldn't be sped up like in Thule's case. If the people were ready to have their triple helix activated, they already would and wouldn't need Thule to do it for them. Be very careful what you do and whom you're dealing with. Find the answers within, and don't let others bypass your progression. In regards to the Thule order and how they activate the triple helix, I have recently received some new information from an anonymous insider source, who says, the activation of triple helix is not a choice for any individual by request, not everyone can be activated. The reason why is because it is a case-by-case selection process. In the mind, a station is tuned in that enables direct contact with its particular ones in this case. They refer to themselves as the elder race, who are different than the ancient ones, and are also called the gods of Agartha. If the ETS that gave Jarl Vidar this technology do not see value for them to use you, the ritual will not be successful regardless. Your blood will not activate. Also, the framework of the initiate is analyzed before they are chosen. The mind and emotional body may have glitches. If they are minor and easily reparable, the ETs are willing as long as the initiate's desirable traits are far more valuable for their mission. The behavior will be erratic, indecisive, or impulsive, at first anyway, but over time the brain receptors that are producing unbalanced electromagnetic pulses, kinetic brain energy, will sync with the biological vehicle's velocity of motion, the speed at which the mind evolves to link with the more advanced beings. This duration cycle is best described by analogy of the larval stage of an insect. There are no mistakes in the selection process of the ETs involved. Once the triple helix has been activated, the DNA codes awakened in the program will gain momentum as it progresses towards the specific design of the structure it was activated for. The behaviors and emotions are actually key and required for the individual's course for a few reasons. One is to be able to push forward to completion. Another is to attract the spirits needed on the astral plane to assist them, and also to emotionally connect with other people with their now charged magnetism. And other reasons, but as I said, it is case by case. Many readers of my previous book, The Myth Around Supreme David Rockefeller, were curious about how the Vril machine is working, and at that time I didn't know enough to be able to give a correct answer to that. However, at least I have some more information on it which I hope can be valuable for those who are interested. My anonymous source continues. The Vril machine uses the Earth's grid lines and the energy fields that correspond to the body's meridian system to activate the triple helix. But I don't have all the details on it to be informative. The energy grid is not functioning properly anyway because it is out of balance. Blockage has been building up energy in the Western world and starving the eastern side of the world. That's why the Western world is bountiful and the eastern part is living with poverty. It's important though to look at how those blocks got there. That's a Stargate issue that has to be dealt with before we go into the next cycle. The Mayan calendar says we are in the fourth world. But actually, only half the planet entered the fourth world. The other half stayed in the third world, as in third world countries. The Stargate located in Iraq is being kept in mystery. So I don't know anything about the problem, or a solution for it. But have you ever thought it was interesting how our planet has indigenous tribes cohabituating here on Earth with the modern world? Why wouldn't the tribes people buy shoes and build roads? They have no desire, their way of life is as important to them as ours. And if you talk with them, they will tell you about planets in our solar system that astronomers barely discovered in the last decade, and they don't even own a television. 4.5. Nibiru's coordinates and the original creator gods have landed on Earth. We now know that Nibiru is going to enter our solar system. Today, on July 30, 2011, as of this writing, its coordinates are 5 HRS 53 mins 27 SEC by 6 HRS 10 mins 58 SEC, best seen in Southern Hemisphere. With Nibiru come the A.A.M.I, and they have their agenda. However, the original creator gods, although they've kept an eye on their library, are also coming back, and as a matter of fact, as we speak, many of them have landed here on Earth, mostly Pleiadians so far. Pleiadian Lecture, Spring 2011. Things are building up, it seems. Earth has now entered a conjunction or lineup that the original creator gods have been waiting for and have thus returned to help us reactivate the 12 helix DNA in our species and put Earth back on track. It was decided that the stewards of this planet should hold the key to unlocking the data that was stored in the living library. 4.6 The number 12 in relation to Earth and our DNA. So why do we have 12-strand DNA and not 5, 7, 10, 15, 20, or whatever? Like I've mentioned before, there are many metaphysical entities, channeled or via SDS, sensor data streaming, who are on the same page regarding the 12-strand DNA. However, Barbara Marciniak's Pleiadians are the forerunners and also still the ones with the most interesting information on this subject, I think. Let us take a look how the 12 helices tie into the 12 information centers, being the 12 chakra system. When the chakras are open, connected, and activated, information is seeking its own expression and becomes available. When we are hooked into the information centers, 7 in our body and 5 outside our body, we are ready to receive energy through another set of 12 information centers. When we activate our 12 chakras, we hook into energy stored in parallel sets of 12 centers that will further activate the process. This will eventually bring our brains into its complete, full, computer-like function. These 12 parallel realities can unlock information that has been secreted away. The Pleiadians say we can compare this with deep governmental security, which uses different levels of fingerprints and imprints to access different levels of information. If something very secret is stored away, there are many different ways things must be connected. But why the security? It should be quite obvious to the reader by now. The original seeders of Earth could from previous experience, Earth is not the only living library, foresee what would happen if everything is in the open. They anticipated a future where invader forces would come to Earth and play their agendas. The deep security was a way to safeguard their creation. The activation of our 12 helices coincides with the activation, spinning, movement, and opening of the 12 centers of information, the 12 chakras or etheric energy discs. When the alignment of energy takes place, it brings and pulls energy into the 12 heavenly bodies in our solar system. These bodies then start feeding energy back to Earth. They activate themselves by releasing what they hold so that Earth can biogenetically come alive. When the outer 5 energy centers begin to hook themselves back up with our planet, there will be an incredible flood of energy, and this is what we are seeing the beginning of. There is certainly a correlation between the landing of Pleiadians on our planet and the activation of the 12 energy centers. The Pleiadians go on saying there are many more of these groups of 12, like the 12 spinning universes, for example. So far the Pleiadians. As we can see, they work with the 12 system, while LPGC and the Wingmakers in their science and their working model work with the 7 system. If the reader can remember, we discussed the Wingmakers in an earlier paper, the 7 tributary zones and the 7 superdomains/super universes. This is how the Pleiadians explain why they use the number 12. Right now 12 is the system that connects, and if you look around, you will see it everywhere. It was a symbolic insertion for a reason, so that you would someday figure out that it connects you to something somewhere else. It is not your natural rhythm but is a group agreement to use the energy of 12 in many different systems of reality. It is a coded formula. Many things that make no sense to the logical mind make a tremendous amount of sense to the light-encoded filaments and to the body as it is becoming more sensitive. There are those who would say that this is a very inefficient system and that it is not a natural flow. But this system of 12 is the flow that this planet was adjusted to. In actuality, if you look, you are a system of 13. How many times a year does the moon come full? 13. The system of 13 will come. You will open to it soon because you will move past time. The energy of 13 moves beyond logic and beyond the forced system. I am not going to speculate too much about the 2 systems, or 3, if we count that of 13, because I am not savvy in higher physics and quantum/subquantum mechanics, but I can't help but speculate a little bit. If the Pleiadians are working with 12, it is 7 energy centers in connection with the body chakras, and we have 7 tributary zones in the Wingmakers philosophy, and these are the ones the Labyrinth group is working with. Are they representing the 7 body chakras? The Guardian Alliance are also working with the 12 system, albeit 15 dimensions, and when discussing the Wingmakers material, they say it's wrong. There are actually 12 tributary zones on Earth, and 12 hidden, which makes it 24 still the 12 system, and that they are owned, not by the Wingmakers, but by the Guardian Alliance. 4.7 The family of light and multiple living libraries. There are those who came to this planet to receive energies from the original planners, creator gods. The Pleiadians call them the family of light and they are the forerunners. They have been here for a while and are those who raise above the crowd to show the way for others. The energy they receive from the original planners, whom I from now on will call the builders, of the living library in contrast to the founders, who built the structure of the universe, including the human template, creates a genetic alteration and reactivation and rebundle the light-encoded filament. This filament will make up the 12-helix system which can move the body into activation. Once people have their 12 helices reactivated, they then are ready to be used to access the data that is stored in Earth. The Pleiadians explain. What is this data that is so important? It is disguised in insects and flowers and pigs and donkey tails and rabbit ears and all kinds of things, and it is for you to discover. We want to emphasize that when the data was stored in the 12 libraries, it was stored in many different layers. When you came into the libraries, there were different codes of clearance. In other words, there were many different ways of entering the libraries. You could not just walk in and say, I have free clearance to receive all of this information. Just as there is now security clearance within your government, so the libraries holding this information had security systems. When the libraries were built, there was the pulsation of tyranny beating. This was long before the Anunnaki landed on Earth, billions of years ago, in our terms. There was a concern amongst the keepers of time, another world for the ancient creator gods, that information would get in the wrong hands. So, very playfully and creatively, libraries were designed in many different modes. Apparently, other libraries, or worlds, are not like Earth at all, and contain other information. What the builders decided to do was to engineer a project through which consciousness could evolve, have information, and be utilized to access information. This to me, rings very true, and as I progress on my own journey, I see new things around me all the time. If I study the butterfly with a certain pattern imprinted on its wings, I realize it's not only camouflage, but also encoded messages, like with any symbols. Without even knowing what these symbols mean, I could get profound insights that day. This is how it works on one level. And the snakes have their patterns. The Earth Library was designed so that without the human occupants, no one except the builders with the highest clearance and the master key could access the library. Humans are the library cards and some are better library cards than others. In the past, there was training involved that went into being the library card, and when beings from space or elsewhere came and wanted access to the library to find information on this planet, they would merge with the human occupant who was coded to respond to certain codes. If someone has a low code, they might only see a certain amount of something. Each being came to get access to a certain kind of information, just like in a book library. There were no secrets for secret's sake, the information looked for needed to be electromagnetically suited to their biokin structure. Data needs to be able to penetrate the belief system of an individual, or the individual's nervous system would not be able to handle it. However, when energy is strongly tempered with love, it prevents the individual from blowing apart and keeps them focused on very enlarged concepts. This is how large concepts are transduced onto this planet, they ride on the love frequency. Light frequency, on the other hand, can't carry larger concepts because it is not connection with emotion. This is the reason why human emotions are so important, they transfer light into love. In addition, and this is very important, many occult practices and religious cults out there are trying to have you leave your body saying that salvation is not in the flesh, but in the spirit. Therefore, they have exercises and practices showing you how to get out of your body. There is nothing wrong with leaving your body on occasion if you know how to protect yourself. If you don't, anyone or anything discarnate may jump into the vacant space that's your body. Instead, it's imperative to understand that our job is to download the cosmos into our bodies, not to leave our bodies. This is how we activate our DNA. So, in other words, now, in these times, it's very important to stay grounded. The gamma rays from the sun and from the galactic center are what will mainly help activate us. Connect to the sun, connect to nature, connect to the central sun, but do so while being here, in your body. If not, the activation process may not work. I can't stress this enough. Our task is to meet this cosmic energy, absorb it, use it to reach higher levels of consciousness and meet others on these higher planes who have done the same, all through our biology. 4.8 Sex, DNA and the Living Library. We all know that without sex we wouldn't be able to reproduce. Stop having sex and the species will quickly be extinct. We also know that sex is a strong drive in both women and men, and that we need it in one way or the other to feel good and satisfied. Lack of it can lead to frustration and even depression. Sex is also connection, a way for two individuals of opposite or same sex who love each other to become as one during the act and during the orgasm. During the climax, enormous sexual energies are sent out in the multiverse in a wave of creative force. Sex could lead to pregnancy, but even when it doesn't, it makes the environment in which love was made, fertile and life-enhancing. This, however, only happens when there is love between the individuals who have sex. Many religions promote having sex with only one individual in your life, the one you marry. This is counterproductive and suppressive, a rule made by the controllers. This doesn't mean we should sleep around with the first person we meet and cheat on our partners, but a person who is not bonded to someone else has the freedom to explore, and when you are bonded, the two of you are certainly free to explore as well, so long as both are on the same page and love is there. However, in the Western culture we are taught monogamy, and therefore having sex with more than one partner creates jealousy and a feeling of being less worth than others. Sex and love go hand in hand. Sex without love, just for the pleasure of it, is counterproductive and can lead to sex addiction of different kinds. Be very careful with whom you have sex, because in the act, we share our energies with each other and merge with each other. If the frequencies don't match, it may not only be a bad experience, but the energies may stay with you for a long, long time. Sex between equal partners can take you places which are hard to describe in words, but it takes you to higher dimensions. The number 10 is a power number, or a master number. It's actually two numbers, 1 and 0, same numbers as the binary system used in computers. The 1 is the phallus and the 0 is the vagina, thus, 1 is male and 0 is female energy. These two numbers can be found everywhere, yin and yang, 1 and 0, and on the checkerboard by combining numbers, for example, on the checkerboard which has 64 squares, black and white, 1 and 0, yin and yang, the number 64 equals 6 plus 4 equals 10 equals 1 and 0, just to mention another example. 1 and 0 are universal and part of what the universe is built around. The checkerboard is represented everywhere in our society, because it's such an ancient symbol. Freemasonry uses it all the time, and the floors in their lodges are covered with the checkerboard symbol. Next time you drive into town you can play a game with yourself or your partner. Count how many checkerboards you see on buildings, on floors everywhere, and see who finds the most. You'll be surprised. The number 0 also represents a portal, or stargate if you will. The vagina in itself is a portal to the spirit realm. This is where the sperm travels, a body is growing and a spirit is entering through the portal of the vagina. Thus, the female energy is very powerful, fertile, and life-enhancing. Unfortunately, since the Anunnaki tampered with our DNA and took over the stewardship of this planet, the male energy has ruled and the female energy been suppressed. We men need to step back and let the women once again be our equals, not through some kind of women's lib, like in the 1970s, which basically put men in the position women were before the movement started. So, instead of making us equal, it suppressed the male energy. This was orchestrated and very well planned by the Rockefeller family to continue to create imbalance between the sexes, confusion, and the destruction of the family unit. The women became like men instead of letting women be women and men be men. An often misunderstood Dr. Henry Makow, http://henrymakow.com, started out bringing up this issue, before he changed direction and more began to expose the global elite. Sex is so powerful that the global elite and black magicians in general are using it as a tool to bring in entities from other realms of realities, in their cases, the lower astral. Magicians, who gather in groups, entice women to come and join, and apply sex magic, to them. This way of using sex has nothing to do with love, no matter how much the magician is trying to convince you otherwise. Having sex without love, and with the attempt to bring up deities or demons, is destructive and must be avoided by anyone who is reaching for the higher densities of existence. I am emphasizing this, because these dark practices are much more common than people think and counteract the true path towards ascension. As of this writing, women who were in contact with the German Thule Order and its extension here in the US have now come forward after have broken free from the spell of people like Michael Noel Prescott, mentioned in detail in my previous book, The Myth Around Supreme David Rockefeller, http://supremrockefeller.wordpress.com. Michael Prescott is currently in jail for drug-related issues. However, when you own your sexuality, sex is fundamental, it's a part of the process of reactivating the DNA. You may have very interesting encounters as the years evolve and we become accessible, and as others utilize you to discover the library. It's up to each and everyone to take the opportunities to express it, and if you want to express it in those ways or not. More about this will be revealed later as I learn more myself. According to the Pleiadians, sex has been used to spark the library card. However, there is a fine line here, because there is danger in it too. It has been, and is, misused, as described in the paragraphs above. It is imperative that we all are careful and make sure we own our sexuality. Sex is fun, healthy, pleasurable, connecting, playful and experimental. Have fun with it, but don't let anybody entice you or force you to do something you don't want to do. Don't compromise with it. If you like it, if it's fun, playful, healthy, pleasurable, connective and experimental, it's positive sex. If not, it's going to bring you down eventually, and sexuality loses its true meaning. Sex does not have to be with a partner, either, although sex between two people is more powerful. If you don't have a partner, masturbation works too. Many masturbate even when they are in relationships, which is perfectly normal, and is sometimes helpful in the process. When you have sex with someone you love and who loves you back, you open avenues to the different libraries. The one you connect with doesn't have to be the person you would marry, but mutual love has to be there. Honor and love yourself and your body, give your body compliments, and keep it as healthy and strong as you can. That will be very important in the days to come. Sex brings up emotions, and emotions are the key to accessing data stored in the living library. 4.9 The gardeners. The builders, as well as the Anunnaki, were gardeners. They knew how to create a garden with flowers, herbs, roots, fruits, trees, and plants to get the best variety, enabling enhancement of physical bodies and the DNA. The builders spent a lot of time teaching us how to use nature as the source to our physical and emotional well-being. At that time we had access to the living library in a sense we do not have now. Some say that the evolved human, before the Anunnaki came, did not eat meat, but were vegetarians of sorts and could even live on absorbing light from the sun and from the plant life, which in its turn were downloading light from the sun and decoded the information into their system. Perhaps we did not become meat eaters until the Anunnaki added their own DNA to ours and tampered with our original 12 helices? Workers needed to be strong, and maybe giving us protein was the solution for the gods? Just food for our thoughts. Even during the Anunnaki period there were golden eras, where there was relative peace, and some of the gods taught man how to garden. Man became less enslaved, but the Anunnaki were still the slave owners, just like George Washington may have had some good ideas for the settlers, but still owned slaves, and could benefit from what they were taught. Although the intention with teaching us was probably to help out in the gods' gardens among other things, it was still beneficial. I am not suggesting that all Anunnaki were bad all of the time. They had their good beings as well, who wanted to protect humanity, but even though some of these more benevolent gods were of royal blood, they are still part of the A.A.M.I system, and that is the reason we need to stay away from these beings for now. Eons ahead, when things may have changed, we can look at the situation again. Learn about gardening is something we need to do again. As we evolve, we automatically want to withdraw more and more from technology the way it's used by our modern society. We have seen the functional insanity that comes with it when used by low frequency. When technology was new and the increase of amazing devices and machines came on the market, most people were excited and thought it was fun and interesting. Even I thought so, going for a degree in computer science. I went pretty far on that route until I realized there was a connection between computers and artificial intelligence. The more I learned, the more chills went down my spine. I quit and have not regretted it since. I am glad I had that experience, another necessary learning lesson. Everything happens for a reason. Now, years after, I once again feel the great pull from nature and to connect with it on a much deeper level. I have been connected since I was a little kid, and even if I've been busy for parts of my life being inside the system, caught up in work and fast pace, I notice that once I get out there among the trees and the flowers, forests and wildlife, I connect instantly. It's a wonderful feeling and I feel how everything is one, it's very obvious. True happiness lies in connection, not in separation. However, the connection needs to be natural, not artificial, created by technology. Additionally, the ones in charge of nanotech and how it is used is also in charge of the whole humanity, a route towards the ultimate control. This is what I see happening in the A.M.I. society. When you feel the change coming from inside and you know you need to change your lifestyle, look into, and research, the living library, the herbs, the plants, the fruit, berries, vegetables, the roots, learn what you need to be able to create a garden for yourself, free from toxins. Talk to the plants, give them love and affection. Have sex in the garden, if possible, and communicate with the sun and ask for the best garden there is, with the healthiest food ever imaginable. Bless the earth and say thank you to the plants and herbs before you eat them. Feel gratitude. Do all this, and the same thing with the water, and you'll have a garden that has rarely been seen on earth in the last 100 years. And of course, you will live a healthy life and probably extend it quite a bit. The Penre Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The First Level of Learning. http://wespenre.com. Solution Section. Solution Paper Number 3, Expansion on the Living Library. DNA, an Ascension. By Penre, Friday, August 7, 2011. Part 3. 5. The Hierarchy of 144,000. There are those existing in this universe who are ancient. They have been working on and in this universe for eons and eons. They are ancient elders and they are honored by alien species as great wise men and women, in our terms, although they are genderless. Some call them the keepers of existence. They are the ones who make the movements and drive the system like a pilot drives a ship. They steer the universe on its course to discovery. They are the ones who keep the goals of galaxies, star systems, and universes obtained, in the best ways possible. We know them as the founders. There is a plan to send energies into a new experience here on Earth and a number of other star systems where we simultaneously exist. Emotion is essential and the key to it all in comprehending all identities compacted into one. There is actually no preconceived idea of what will happen, this is new territory. The Pleiadians say, what is in Earth is like a locked-away secret in the chronicles of time, and it has to do with emotion. In this gift of emotion there is wealth and richness, there is incredible ability to transcend many different realities and to move through and experience many different states of awareness. Emotion allows certain energies to coalesce, fuse, bond, and come together in realization of themselves. Without emotion, that bond could not be. There is a hierarchy in this universe and beyond, working under the ancient elders, but the hierarchy we are talking about is not a hierarchy of egotistical power, it's a hierarchy which works out of love, cherishes life and who we are, and have been able to see through the time mechanisms keyed into our planet and they understand that this planet is ready for an evolutionary leap. There are 144,000 members of this spiritual hierarchy, infused in the gridwork of the planet at this particular time. Each master has its own seal that represents one portion of the language of light. and we have 144,000 seals of energy that will eventually be infused within our being. In the beginning, we will start with only 12 forms of energy that the body can hold. Much further down the line, once the transformation has fully occurred, there will be an infusion of the entire 144,000 symbolic language structures through our being. This goes way beyond our comprehension at this time. Just like the Pleiadians, the Guardian Alliance talk about these 144,000 masters as well in Ashayana Dean's Voyagers series, Dean 2002, 2nd edition, Voyagers 2 p.160, pages 194-195. The Guardians are telling us that the 144,000 are needed to activate our 6th DNA strand. This, of course, is the alignment with higher consciousness, and it has everything to do with the 12 chakras and the 12 helix DNA that the Creator Gods are currently working with. However, not everybody will search for the divine, and many are going to refuse increased awareness. This is a choice, and those who refuse will eventually live the lives they are creating in a different reality from those who choose to expand. There is no right and wrong in this, only choice. When we become aware of whom we are, that's one of the 5th steps on the journey. Then, when we start getting aware of the divine consciousness that seeds this planet, an intellect that is vast, loving, and works with us, and when we connect to that consciousness and ask to be a part of it, that's when we are being implanted with geometric forms. These forms come in a variety of shapes, and we see the structures everywhere on the planet. The pyramid form is just one of them, the cube another. What this language of light will do for us will be the subject for another paper, but this is going to be an important part of our evolution. The main thing to remember now is that we are watched over, and we are loved and supported. Those who really want to expand their consciousness and are constantly working on it will reach their goals. Picture inside of you what it is you want, what kind of world you want to live in and with whom, what kind of people would you like to be living amongst. How do you want to live, in what environment, what do you want to do for a living? It's imperative that we know what we want, or we can't create any sustainable future. It's not enough to say that we want love and light, we need to picture our future and go for it. Always keep your goals of the future world in mind, like a carrot that you are closer and closer to be able to grab, contrary to the donkey, who may never reach it. As we shall see later, we need a certain percentage of the world population who paint their reality with a similar broad brush for the masses to follow. So be careful with what you want, stop sloppy thinking and sloppy talking. Be clear in your mind and in your thought. Think before you speak. It is very important. These are the rules to follow to be able to be the keepers of frequency and the increasers of frequency. Here is a quote about frequencies, by the Pleiadians, 1992. Earth's owners, the Anunnaki, have not wanted humans to understand that their feelings and emotions are like a crop, such as wheat, that can be harvested. If you are in charge of your own harvest, then others cannot take advantage of you and use you unless you decree it. When you operate with a certain frequency and sovereignty, those who wish to control you are not interested in you. They want a fearful, chaotic frequency, which is what nourishes them. Death and chaos have predominated on this planet because these entities have stirred them up. They have divided and conquered everywhere to create that frequency. When you operate in peace and love and with information, you alter the structure of this place drastically, you bring choice of frequency back to this planet. This takes us directly to another interesting subject. 6. The harvest. I first learned about the concept of the harvest from Hidden Hand, which led me to the RA material, which is taking on the subject big time. In short, it has to do with frequencies and vibrations like everything else. Metaphysical sources are telling us that if we work on our frequency and start vibrating on a certain frequency, which is above the frequency fence the Anunnaki put us in, we break free and experience higher densities on a new earth. We are coming back to the harvest in a moment, but first. 6.1 We must slow down. What the powers that be, PTB number, are trying to do now is to ride on the fact that time is speeding up. There are many reasons as to why they are creating a financial meltdown and economical crisis on a global scale right now, and we will not go through them all here, but the movers and shakers of this world know how to squeeze out all opportunities from a given possibility. They are laying off more and more people, who then will be stressed, not knowing if they will continue receiving unemployment before they get a new job, and often the low amount of money they receive from unemployment forces them to change lifestyle drastically. Their houses may have a foreclosure, they may have to move into a crowded space with relatives they may or may not like to live together with, and worse. It's becoming a stressful situation, based on fear and anxiety, food for the gods. The rest, who still have a job and are employed to keep parts of the show on the road, must then work for 2, 3, and sometimes 4 people. The pace is enormous and the multitasking required inhumane. Society is telling us to speed up and time itself is speeding up as well. What to do? I've said it a few times before and I say it again, slow down. The only way to put yourself on top of the world is to slow your pace. If you're at the fairground, sitting in a carousel which starts spinning faster and faster because the machinery is out of control, what happens if you stay on the carousel wheel? Sooner or later, unless someone regains control over the machinery, you're going to go insane from the spinning. Same thing with life. If you stay in the super fast loop, you are going to go insane, eventually. The trick is to take deep breaths and slow down and step outside the network of functional insanity for a while. Best would be if you could just quit your crazy job, move to the countryside and slow down both mentally and physically. Not all of us are fortunate enough to be able to do this, though. We still need a job, which normally requires everything, and more, from us, but the trick is to slow down inside. I, too, have a job which normally requires a lot from me and my co-workers, but I have managed to slow down inside and thus be in control over the situation. And lo and behold, the world outside, to a large degree, adjusts to my inner guidance. I am still required to do the same things, but it is all of a sudden manageable and I'm not stressed out. I still get the job done with the same precision. It also helps that I come from a European country where the pace is much slower, or at least was when I left it. Interestingly enough, studies show that in Sweden, where everything is more laid back, we still get the same job done, sometimes more, as Americans who multitask and are subjected to high stress levels, do. Sweden also has one of the highest longevity in the world, where Japan is number 1. The problem in the near future, and it is already starting, is that even the laid-back countries will have to speed up to keep up with the declining economy. At least that's what people will be told. The question is how well those from more easygoing countries will adjust to the new, multitasking reality. I certainly had problems with this when I moved over here to the USA. It was quite of a shock. There is no great magic secret to how to slow down. Breathing exercises and knowledge about how energy works are the keys. Slow down the particles inside of you and stay calm as much as you can. Same thing in your spare time. Find moments of rest and deep breathing and listen to Leonard Cohen if you need to, the king of slow and soothing energies. This is so important that if we don't manage to be in charge of our own energy field and slow down when time and society speed up, we are going to either end up in the asylum or where the rest of society ends up. This is what separates the wheat from the chaff. Our ascension depends on it. Here is the guideline for a great breathing exercise, which is very easy to practice. http://wespenre.com/quantum-pause.htm. There are lots of others that are very good, but this is the one I am using the most myself, and it's working amazingly well. 6.2 Preparing for the harvest season. When enough people on this planet have reached a certain frequency, when the collective has built enough power, individuals all over the world will follow and find themselves on a quickening of awareness which will come quite sudden, seemingly out of nowhere. This will happen to a larger or lesser degree to most people, but then it's a matter of individual choice what to do with these new energies. Some will embrace them when they come and ride on the wave, while others will do their best to resist, clinging on to the functional insanity as a safe haven, in spite of the drama and trauma involved, because it is all they know. This latter category of people are afraid of the unknown and dare not try new waters. You are going to see a lot of people in this category, and they will move into the big cities, into safety, where the machine kingdom is rapidly getting established, and Big Brother is taking care of them. We will see people who are totally in the hands of the PTB to such an extent that many of them will end up as cyborgs, half human and half machine. When they get ill and some body parts start malfunctioning, these parts are replaced with artificial parts which can do the job to keep the body alive. What people forget, because of their fear and anxiety and inability to cope with life and death, is that each body part in the human body is alive and fills a function for the individual. When body parts are replaced with machine parts to keep the body alive, people become more and more like robots and zombies, with no capacity to evolve as a species, except from machine technology. Eventually, the human body can no longer mass produce, is not good enough for a soul to inhabit it, and that's the death of Homo sapiens sapiens. What remains is a soulless race, much like factions of the Zeta Greys, run by interdimensional beings. We're at a fork in the road, and the above is a very plausible timeline, branching out from the main road. The other part of the population will end up doing pretty much the opposite. They will embrace these new energies, and as their awareness increases they want to break free from the chains that are holding them down. They will say that's it to slavery and control and start yearning for nature and the countryside. Many will end up in small collectives, self-sufficient communities where everybody is helping everybody else in the community by contributing with their own particular skills. No one will be left behind or kicked out, unless they evidently and consciously work against the survival of the community, and nature will be the focus point for their continuous ascension process. This was done a lot in the 1970s, when hippies moved out in the country and started growing their own food. This worked very well for a while, and there was a movement back then which was a forerunner for what is going to come. It didn't work out so well in the long run for two main reasons. 1. The awareness level was not high enough for the involved to be keepers of frequency, there was still a lack of knowledge, and this was before the nanosecond, meaning that the real DNA reactivation had not started yet, and 2. The movement was infiltrated by the PTB. They let the hippies do their thing for a while intentionally so to show the world that this kind of rebellion is not only childish and naive, but also non-workable, which is not true. The media covered the hippie movement until the world knew what it was about, and then they infiltrated it and split it up, until people gave up and moved back into the cities. Some say that the hippie movement was planned all the way from the beginning, because the PTB knew what was coming in the future, i.e. the nanosecond, and people working on breaking out. Their hope was that many would think twice before doing so, knowing that it had been tried before and didn't work. In an earlier paper I made the comparison between the frequency fence we live in with a radio tuned into one single station, when there are a lot of other stations as well. A lot of people will find that they are getting tuned into a lot of different radio stations on a higher frequency than the one they were trapped in, and eventually, the old radio station will disappear or fade out, and these people will find themselves living in a new world, on a new earth, which vibrates on a much higher frequency. This is a quite simplistic way of explaining the exact science of ascension, but you get the picture. In a future paper, I will explain the exact science behind it. I can't emphasize enough that the times we live in right now are extremely unique. These are the times when karmic timelines will come together because we attract them in the process of breaking out. Huge karma from the Atlantis and the Lemurian times will hit humanity with full impact, in all meanings of the word impact. People are having sightings of UFOs all the time, all over the planet. The media have been quiet about it up until quite recently, but are now selectively starting to report on it. UFO researchers and believers are often enthusiastic and think that the truth about visitors and UFOs will now finally come out in the open. Don't count on it. There will be a media coverage, but not for the reasons the UFO community may think. Those behind the media have their own agenda, please be aware of this. I just want to mention it here. If the media are announcing that the ETS are here and we're not alone in the universe, and then go on telling us whatever story they have typed and projected on a screen in front of them in the studio, and it's going to be based on deception. The media is not going to tell us the truth about the ETS. At the time of this writing, the big TV stations are announcing UFO activities around the Great Lakes in the US, Canada, and other parts of the world. See video 1 below. Yes, these UFOs are real, but the announcement is not in an effort to unite the people and create some unity with alien forces, in this case the Anunnaki, but to prepare the world for the presence of an alien race that does not have our best interests in mind. The real ET connection will start happening inside. There is not going to be a mass landing of UFOs from good-hearted aliens. Those who support us are mainly going to do so by connecting with us on a spiritual level rather than a physical. There will be physical contacts with ETS as well, but outside the scope of the media and on a more individual, small community basis. The builders, who are presently starting to appear on our planet, do not want media attention as the UFOs over the Great Lakes obviously do, and we know who they are, thanks to Michael Lee Hill. See separate paper for my interview with him. 6.3 Into the Harvest and Beyond. One of the most prominent fear and anxiety people have is about death. Many don't want to admit it, but they are still afraid to die. I've suggested many times in my papers that fear and anxiety is what is really holding us back from raising our frequencies. Thus, people can say that they don't fear this, and they don't fear that and think they are fearless. However, not until you overcome the fear of death can you reach higher densities. Think about it. You want to expand your consciousness until you reach as high as you believe is possible, but you fear death. Then you are still within the frequency fence, because death is part of it. We will all die. Albeit, we need to really grasp the concept that we live in the Matrix, and this is just a huge hologram A game we're playing, and there is no such thing as death, just disposal of vehicles. You will actually feel much better and more vital when you die. If you ransack yourself and notice that you still have death anxiety, please review my paper, Metaphysics paper number 4, There is a Light at the End of the Tunnel: What Happens After Body Death. We all need to come to terms with this subject. It's one of our greatest challenges, but also the most rewarding. Once we pop out of that fear, then nothing can really shake us. That is why the PTB and the metaphysical forces behind them withhold this information from you. Lately, mainstream media have made some fair documentaries on NDE, near-death experiences, but they stubbornly avoid mentioning Dr. Michael Newton's work, where he has documented proof of that is happening exactly in the afterlife. One may wonder, why not putting him on air? These papers, my work, are merely guidelines. This is the best, and only way, I can really efficiently help my fellow man. I can't do anything else for anybody on their spiritual path, because our reality is set up in a way that we must self-motivate to be able to evolve and be empowered. All I can do is to light that little spark in people, which will hopefully start them, or have them continue on their own road to enlightenment. I see the urge for me and others to do this, although some may say it is not important, because we are only here to empower ourselves, and by doing so, and be an example for others, we empower them too and thus get them started. This is true and also what most people are here to do, and that is both great and valid, but there are also a few who need to wake the mass consciousness up the best they can. That's not for everybody. It's a soul agreement that some of us have made, and it's just the way it is. We are one big soul family here on Earth, divided into smaller soul groups to have individual experiences. So, love everybody despite their shortcomings. That's the only way to go free, because if you don't, there are parts of yourself you do not love, and these exact parts will come back at you, harder and harder, until you deal with them and turn anger, fear, or whatever emotion it could be, into love. Can you see how this works? We need to get to a point when fear and anxiety is a part of the past, in our terms, and the new way of thinking becomes as natural as breathing and sleeping. And not even that is true. By erasing these lower vibrations from your present life, you heal them along the lines of time as well, and you literally change your own past and future, your own timelines, and heal along the lines of time. You become whole and one with yourself. Your learning experiences here in this version of Earth are over. When you've overcome the fear of death, you are ready to absorb the following information and really take it to heart and not just let it be something you read, nod your head it, and then forget about. What is real ascension, and what is the harvest that so many metaphysical entities talk about? Actually, there are basically two kinds of harvests: 1, the one that leads to ascension, and 2, the one the Zeta Gray researchers call the harvest of souls, which is the trap, the deception. It has nothing to do with ascension, but abduction of information clouds/souls, and is something we will discuss later on, at another level of this school of learning. In New Age, ascension often means that we all of a sudden transmute into a higher density and everything around us changes instantly. Sometimes you have help from ascended masters or the Ashta command. Watch out for these teachings, because they will either lead you nowhere, or they are right out counterproductive and dangerous. The Ashta command is nothing less than the Syrian Anunnaki in disguise. Maybe it should be read the Ishtar command instead, Ishtar being the Anunnaki female royalty, Inanna, the Black Widow, who chose human men to be her lovers, and then she killed them. Did she eat them too afterwards, just like the spider? It doesn't tell, but I wouldn't be surprised. The Black Widow metaphor may have more truth to it than people realize. Now, if I say that real ascension, or the real harvest, does not require body death, how would that differ from New Age ideas? The difference is marginal but important. In New Age, you dispose your third density body and ascend via your lesser dense light body and magically transform into this new, beautiful fourth or fifth density, which is there, waiting for you. You get the concept that you fly away to some planet somewhere, where life all of a sudden is free from war, hate, anger, or most of the negativity we experience in 3D. Everybody will live in love and peace and do their thing until it's time to evolve into the next density. Others say you need to die to be able to get to the new level of reality. In the real harvest you stay in your current body. Harvest means that you have activated your dormant DNA and are now seeing reality with a new pair of eyes. You rearrange your molecular structure in your current body. This is why it is so important to keep grounded and take care of your vehicle, your body. It needs to be as strong as possible to be able to receive the cosmic radiation to reactivate the DNA. Making the ascension leap to the next density and complete our journey here is possible for many of the species living upon this planet. Some of us have already completed the journey once, but come back to help out during this important time period. Those who have done it before remember how it was, the grand journey to get out of this reality. It took lifetime after lifetime to come to the point of total dedication. Part of it was to not live in the material society and go back to live close to nature to be able to do it. Then, once this step was taken, it was a matter of connecting with the elements, communicate with them, love them, play with them, learn how to not fear them, and become one with them. That's different from living in a cabin somewhere because we're bitter because of how society is run and place a gun by our bed to keep all strangers out. Taking this step, not the cabin version, also includes loving those who chose other paths, unconditionally. Even those who are in control. It's a matter of coming to peace with everything that's living, knowing it is all a part of ourselves and therefore seeks to be embraced. You don't always agree with their actions, but you will be able to love who is behind the action as a part of yourself. When you understand that you are playing games with yourself, and that's what life is, it is getting less serious. Ascension and harvest are two different words with two slightly different meanings. Ascension is the process of gradually reactivating your 12 helix DNA and slowly but surely, if you are brave enough, and therefore able to receive the information from your higher selves, or your oversouls, the sun and the galactic center, you will find yourself making new decisions how to live your life, and your old life will be hopelessly obsolete. Your thinking process changes, you will be able to process information from a higher perspective and thus solve problems with greater ease and with more life dynamics in mind when doing so, and you start realizing that you are responsible for everything that happens to you. For some time, you will also feel quite alienated from people in your environment, and you may wonder why you feel this separation when all is one. Don't worry about it, it's natural. The reason, of course, is that your vibration increases faster than your environment, and in the future you will find that this will slowly level out when you, inside yourself, start connecting with the part of the slower developing humanity which is vibrating on your level. Also, alike attracts alike, and you will find people on your own level to connect with. Harvest is the product of the ascension process. Once your DNA is reactivated, you will ascend to realities that your third density reality can't see, and that which does not vibrate in symbiosis with your own reality will no longer be part of it. You have literally fully switched the dial on the radio to a new station. When enough people have reached this level of awareness, Earth will make its transition into the next density. This is the harvest, it's the product of the ascension process on a mass scale. Many will be harvested at the same time and eventually take the big leap into this new awareness of consciousness, and those who chose the machine kingdom will be left in the 3D reality Earth. Not as punishment, but by choice. No one is telling anybody else who can ascend and who cannot, it's not any form of elitism, it's all by choice. In the end, everybody will ascend and be harvested anyway, but in 3D terms, it takes longer for some and goes faster for some. Those who remains in 3D are the souls who've decided that there is more they can, and want/need to learn and experience in the 3D world, and on the highest level, source level, this is very much appreciated. Ascension and harvest are the goals of this planet. In the far future, this is the only way for people who live here to depart from it. As we evolve, in our progress of going back to source and to become one again, we will go to many different places. Once we leave third density and break free from the frequency fence, we become multidimensional and can experience many realities at once and go places in totally different parts of the multiverse while still being grounded in our bodies. We will be able to see that the body, which seems to be so solid and uncontrollable, is actually a product of a divine orchestration, and we, with our consciousness, can do anything we want with it. Life physics, developed by LPGC, call it gnosis, where you are able to stay in your biological body while traveling through space and time with an avatar, which is your light body if you will. There are no limits, none. Think about that last sentence and expand your consciousness by meditating on it. Once you realize what that means, it will blow your mind. If it doesn't, you haven't yet grasped the vastness of it. But don't get obsessed with the thought, just store it inside your mind. One day that sentence will come back to you and give you a major realization. So, take care of your body and expand its usefulness. Trust it, love it, and work with it, not against it. And most important of all, don't be afraid of it. I am not talking about being as pretty or attractive as possible in the eyes of the opposite sex, I am talking about taking care of it, like you would a machine that you want to last as long as possible and work as well as it can under the circumstances. And lastly, here is something from the Pleiadians regarding the harvest. They are also talking about the beings who feed off fear, emphases not an original. Earth's owners the Anunnaki have not wanted humans to understand that their feelings and emotions are like a crop, such as wheat, that can be harvested. If you are in charge of your own harvest, then others cannot take advantage of you and use you unless you decree it. When you operate with a certain frequency and sovereignty, those who wish to control you are not interested in you. They want a fearful, chaotic frequency, which is what nourishes them.